Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon. So a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Moon Harvest, new Patron, good to have you, Amish Earther, Naughty Thumbnails, Mitch Kennedy, Original D Rose, Rod, The Name's Burley, Twad Wazzle, Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, Flat Earth Travolta, J Mels 24, Unimento, M, Iron 26, Endless, Flat Earth Sage, Golden McKinnon, Phoenix Rising 86, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fibre Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Mel B Styles, Harry Blade, Mobile Mac 777, Rob W, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Nealand, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Henrik 86, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic 936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, Tina Baker, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Who doesn't like you?
Well, Wits, I tried to ask him a question about the measurement, and he was like, who is this guy? He's obviously got a low IQ. I'd destroy him in a debate. I'm like, just asked you a question, dude. What the hell?
Wow, they're full of themselves. Nathan, what show number is today? You getting coffee?
1954.
18 or 19?
1954.
1954. I mean, some nice cars were made in 1954.
You know, when he gets to
1954.
when he gets to 1980, he needs to have a specialty show since that's his last name. You know,
Good
last
call.
part of
Good
it.
call.
What were we going to
Yeah,
say,
maybe
really?
Said housing was affordable in 1954.
I,
I was talking about cars. But that's true also.
Yeah, brand new home in Florida cost you less than $10,000.
Uh-huh.
did you guys see that
Considering-
video that Brian put? Go on, 10th.
No, I said considering I wasn't even born until 1959, I wouldn't have a chance for that house.
Can't just give away his age. Everybody on it. Math.
There you go, 1959. It'll be 65 soon.
How's your family doing, Tim?
We'll find out. I leave Thursday, so I'll be on a respite for a while, 10 days. Yeah, that video Brian put up on Darwin and the cell, and then the host who interjects his dogma, his brainwashing that the Earth has proven to be a globe because we had better instruments. It cracks me up how they bring the two together. But the people talking didn't say it, it's the host did.
Oh, I was going to mention the other video posted, Darwin debunked using modern science.
That's the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that has the G mentioned in there. Okay.
Oh no, the
All right,
host who's the host who the guy's playing a clip of a talk between these three guys. I have both those authors' books, Behe and the other guy, and they go into the von Neumann machines and how the proteins work and how it's information linguistic. I mean, it's so deep. the whole DNA destroys evolution big time. They don't want to admit it, but it does. And so,
Right.
so then the guy who's playing that clip, he's in a little screen overlaid on those three people being interviewed by the actual video interviewer. So one guy is Lennox, the other one's Behe, and the other guy, I can't remember his name, but he's the younger one at the moment. And so he says, oh yeah, since the microscope and we're able to see things. And then he switches it to telescopes, basically, and saying, and that's how we know the Earth is round now, because we look at the sky. It's such a baseless, stupid argument to look at stuff in the sky and say that determines what you're on when they need angle measurements. And John, God bless you, John, you turn your kitchen into a globe. You gave two proponents of globe Earth everything and said, I just got two questions to ask you. And they can handle it. They went crazy on you. You want to remind everyone what those two questions were after you gave them everything?
I think I had one positive claim, and that was that an angle requires two straight lines meeting at a vertex, and the other was that refraction doesn't give you geometry.
Remember when I was dripping celestial navigation after studying for a year? I said, look, the only claim I'm making is that you need an elevation angle, and that's an angle is two straight lines meeting a common point called a vertex, and you must subtract from 90. So it can never work off of a curved surface, from a curved surface. That was the initial stages of looking into their books and seeing how they were transposing the equatorial plane. They weren't telling you directly that the measurements were coming from the equatorial plane. They were showing a person on the globe burger doing the measurements, but when you dug in a little bit, he was never doing the measurements. It was always coming from the center of Earth, angles from hell. It was like, really? So no one's able to do it from a curved surface because you can't get an elevation angle and subtract it from 90 from a curved surface because you'd have different locations at every point because it's dropping away from you, and there's no such thing as diverging zeniths. It was over.
Yeah. I remember when I used to try to like fallaciously make arguments just to try to throw at it when you first started bringing out the information, and like the big sticking point was, well, if it's when it's 90 degrees overhead, it's not refracted. It's the only time that it's where it's supposed to, It
Correct.
was like, yeah, it's still 90 degrees though to the ground.
Yeah. The whole point of it is that one drawing that shows a box and they show a slight curving yellow arrow and it puts 90 degree, which you can't have on a curving arrow.
Just came back and sat down to that. That was the first thing I heard in this conversation, and it's something that hadn't even occurred to me, John. So when they're talking about, oh well, it's only relevant to your zenith, i.e., the position directly above you, and that single point going to the center of Earth. You're like, what about it? Well, that's 90 at your position. Yeah, 90 to what? The ground. So in other words, even when they appeal to their singular zenith and try desperately to get away from the GP position out in space on a tangent for them or not on a curved baseline for them, both a loser, they try and avoid it like the plague while simultaneously pointing out that, oh, well, we can just derive it from our zenith. Well, what's your zenith? Well, a straight line up from you and then 90 degrees to the ground. Right, John?
No, it's madness. It's like, no, we're not wrong that way. We're wrong this way.
Well, they're screwed. This is why I think this is the best argument in terms of flat Earth proof and globe debunking. Simultaneously, it's working out to be the best one, celestial navigation, that is, because they're screwed six ways from Sunday. No matter which way they want to take their shafting, they're going to be shafted, aren't they? Whenever they appeal to doing celestial navigation on a globe, in a globe, I mean, You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing that they're like, well, we're just measuring an angle at this point. We're not going past step one. We're just going to measure the elevation angle. Let's just define what that is, what we need, and how Earth is, what Earth's doing, how it's going to be navigated. But we got to start by that measurement of that angle. And for you can't do it. You're just screwed immediately on a globe. You can't do it.
Well, when I saw initially the pictures of the tangent planes drawn on the spherical imagery in the orthographic view of a circle, which they claim to be a globe, and then I saw the rational horizon, which was the equatorial plane. But then sometimes your eye horizon, the sensible horizon, is also referred to as the rational horizon. Both those were horizontal. And then I see the globe surface depicted by a circle. And then I see a tangent plane on the globe surface. I go, well, why can't you use the globe surface since that's what we're on, if that's what we're on? And they can't. They always need a horizontal plane. So they have to go to the equatorial plane. On the eye line, they use a bubble section, so horizontal is already established. So both those negate any curved surface could work because you have to use a plane in the center of the Earth, which is horizontal. You got to use the bubble section horizontal eye line, okay, in midair. And you say, okay, well, both those work with a horizontal, but the Earth is not horizontal, it's curved, so it can't work. Well, let's just draw a tangent plane on it and say, that's how we're doing it. Okay. So at one point of tangency, the 90 degrees through your head is touching the Earth there. But then the GP of the star is at another point, and that's at a different tangent plane at an angle facing way over there. And Rob Durham with his CAD program, I mean, it's comical at this point.
Okay, I'm just going to warn the audience at this point, right? So, oh, John's dropped. No bad thing. Okay, people have been moaning that the show is too quiet. Fair enough, I suppose. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to limit me a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to turn the overall show volume up. I give it more overall gain, so it's going to be smashing into the limiters and smashing into the compressors, two of them. But people have moaned that it's not loud enough. Well, because I do keep it well out of the red, right? So from this point forth, whatever it is, quarter to the live show starting, I'm going to turn the gain up, right? So it will be in the red. So we'll see how that goes. If people moan that it's distorting, then I'll know not to do that on the future show. But from this point forth, literally in the next 30 seconds, it's going to be turned up, basically.
Marker? That's your marker.
It will be when I've done it. I'm pressing
Yep.
up. You're not going to hear any difference.
No problem. There's a lot of good stuff coming up, Nathan. A lot of research I'm doing on so many factors that are touching each other on our housekeeping questions. I just don't have the time to put it in the presentation form, but the raw material is all gathered.
Okay.
Good stuff, though.
Cool. This goes against my every fiber, watching it smash into that little red dot.
All right. Here we go. Distortion and sound. Yeah, I remember my Marantz receiver would have that. And I turn it up. I go, okay, I'm pushing it now. Is my subwoofer going to blow?
It shouldn't. I mean, I've set the correct stuff. You know, it's got the right limiters and the right stuff. You're probably a little bit too loud in G+, but I'll turn you down a smidge. Can I get a sound check from you guys in Discord, please?
Hello.
Hello.
Is that suffice?
No, you need to talk a little bit more, maybe with a little bit of enthusiasm.
Right. I was gonna ask Tent earlier about that video. Does that mean that this Darwin not being a thing is kind of catching on in the mainstream, or?
Well, ever since DNA came out and the people have been writing as to what it is, information, coded, it's a language, linguistic, and how the proteins work, and the irreducible argument that QE put forward is also in these books, the complexity. And then they quote Darwin in this video saying, if this proves to be, then everything I say is false. And then all you got to do is read Darwin's diary. My goodness. He says the only reason he did this was because he hated his parents forcing religion and God on him. He had to have a world without God. He tells you why he did it.
Oh, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
just step for the finding. Just Google it. You'll see Darwin's diary. Darwin's Black Box. I think he wrote that book. I have that. These are books I read a long time ago. Compared to my focus now is all on this disruption of our history with heliocentrism being foisted upon us, first in the minds of one or two people, Greeks or whoever. They like to cite. They may even go back as far as someone before the Greeks saying, well, I think we're a globe. Okay, fine. Someone says that. Now prove it. Well, we've got them over a barrel because you need an angle measurement. And that destroys everything because you can't get one from a curved surface. So it's a real quick death.
I was about to say, you're comparing two different standards, aren't you? You're comparing somebody who said way back when that it was a globe, which is a historic standard in terms of proving what they said. Okay, well, to expand on what you've just said, yeah, they might have said that. So what? In terms of the actual geometric measurement, we're talking about Earth not being spherical and being measured and navigated flat. Irrelevant what somebody said way back when.
Exactly. And then, like I said earlier, when you find out they're actually taking it from a plane called the equatorial plane, then why are they jettisoning their globe? It's supposed to work from a globe surface, but it can't work from a globe surface. So they have to always either draw a tangent plane or use a bubble section to establish horizontal, or say we're getting from the equatorial plane. So they're admitting to you that it's not working from a globe, but it's working in the globe. Well, no one's in the globe on a sailboat with a sextant. I'm sorry. And then Danny Faulkner in his book, Falling Flat, says that this Earth sphere, the globe Earth, has been around for 25 centuries. Really? And then he puts in parentheses, West, meaning Western, meaning Greeks, meaning the thought someone had there. Okay, well, I dove into it, and this is part of what's coming. The Chinese were navigating up until the 19th century, believing the Earth was a flat. 17th century, the Jesuits came there trying to change them into a globe. They got kicked out. And it just stayed that they couldn't change the culture. So the culture kept saying, no, we're using these tools that are like a Kamal, angle measuring device using the horizon. And I have pictures of them. I have all the citations. And they've successfully navigated the oceans, believing the Earth was flat. So did the Portuguese with Vasco da Gama. I mean, that was before Copernicus. But in the mind of these Greeks, the West, we're a globe. Fine. Historical musings of some Greeks. Then they decided to, as John said, use incorrect math to make the thing possible by making it exist in incorrect math. So mathematically, they can describe, eclipses and different things, so it can match a globe. And they said, well, where are all these measurements coming from? Well, equatorial plane. So not a globe.
Well, to go back briefly to, the globe being taken apart, coming in the mainstream, and now Darwin being taken apart and coming in the mainstream, I'm really curious what the, I guess you could say, ramifications of all this is going to be in society as time goes on. Because these are like some big paradigm shifts.
Darwin's been taken apart for a long time. The flat Earth is coincidingly here as well, but it's because there's an upheaval in societies worldwide, and people realizing they're being lied to on many, many fronts. And we know what happened a couple of years ago to now with all the stuff. So people antennas are up because they sense they're being lied to, and they just want to know the truth. So God will do a great work in this time, because that side that's been lying is vulnerable now.
Well, Interesting times then.
It sure is. They're great times, actually.
Depends where you sit. So, flat Earth never went away. It was always under the surface, shall we say? Well, if it's always there, and they're always keeping it semi-prevalent but under control, then the people who are part of it at that particular moment feel like the world's going to change because they know the truth, but it's only ever kept under the surface level. So your average Joe Westerner, Western world member in society doesn't appreciate what we appreciate. So there is no paradigm change to be concerned about. There is no great awakening.
But doesn't it
No,
seem
it's
like it is
individual.
coming to the surface more and more, especially ever since like the COVID thing? Like people have been questioning things a lot more since COVID, for example.
Maybe. But does that mean that they're going to find their way to us when it's kept at the bottom of the lists?
That's.
Well, I
I'm
guess I could
talking
just say I'm
individually.
assuming
I'm
yes,
not talking.
But the methodology of control has had to be readdressed for YouTube. So they've done that. You know, they've instigated into the algorithm that anti-flat Earth will become the prevalent subject matter specific when you search. Well, that's how it just will be forevermore. Therefore, we will always be at the bottom of the list. Should somebody have their interest peaked, they'll search and then they'll find the anti-flat earthers and then they'll be quickly put back in their Western world place. I mean, I'm being very pessimistic, but I'm just telling you with that hat on.
No, if I get a word in, you're right. You're absolutely right. That's why today's video, which is right after your link that you put up, is on. There's videos, and they're both on the India saying they landed on the moon. First, it's a short clip on that event that never took place. You can see the cartoon images. And then the second one is Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about it. So back-to-back short videos today. What they're doing is they control the medium, which is what I believe you're saying, Nathan. YouTube has its policies, the news has its thing, and TV and all that, and movies. So all the people in the world who are tied to a smartphone or television or radio are controlled by these mediums because they're mediums for communication. And here we are in this corner. People trying to find us would be hard unless we share the show. But we're working on that, right? But again, I'm talking individuals will find the truth. I'm not looking for the masses to find the truth. Individuals will.
Yeah, that I can agree with. I mean, when it gets to the people who have made their way here, the battle back and forth with Neil most of the time, isn't it? Look, just worry about you, Neil. You know the truth. Now, I appreciate that you're constantly assessing, I know he's not here, how many people are finding their way here. Like, you can't really concern yourself in that way. You'll go nuts real quick.
Hiya, guys. Wasn't there some study? I forget the terminology. Like, isn't there a tipping point or a balance point of humanity? Like, until it gets to a certain level of people, say flat Earth, for example, if it's kept at like only 30% of us know the truth, that will remain that way. It has to get to a certain percentage until anything changes drastically. Or I did a dream about this.
I mean, maybe there's loads of examples, like, well, I say examples like sayings where, first it's met by humour or just laughter, then it's met with ridicule, then it's met with furious anger, then it's accepted as normality. Or, what was the one that you gave the other day, 10th, with first they fight you and then, I can't remember what yours was. It was even more eloquent than the one I just gave.
Wow, that was a week ago.
First they fight
You're talking
you.
about
It
Gandhi.
was Gandhi. I'm sure it was.
I'm very happy and content knowing what I know. I don't care if anyone knows what I know. I'm willing to talk about it because I'm well versed in it. I love this show because we talk about Earth, geometry, reality. And so people who know that I'm a flat earther are scared to talk to me. I'm putting time into it. They're not. They're afraid. That's what I know.
I think the saying was something like, first they ignore you, then they fight you, then you win.
I've seen that before.
It's the first First, they ridicule you. Second is violent opposition. And third is acceptance as self-evident. As far
Say
as
that
I
again,
remember.
one more time.
First one is they ridicule you. Second is it's a violent opposition. And third is the acceptance as self-evident.
Yeah. There's plenty of, whatever you want to call them, little fables or whatever they call them, little sayings like that give that order of events. And I don't know, you could pick, depending on which side of the fence you are, where we are in that cycle currently for Flat Earth. But I think it's kept in that perpetual cycle, though. And the acceptance part is always in the future for the people who are part of it. But, you know, maybe the resurgence on YouTube was purely to figure out how it would permeate so they could figure out how to control it under a new type of social media distribution of information. Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it? First, you kind of let it out there under your control to a certain extent, see how it happens, see how it permeates, and then, you know, replace it with what you want to be the information that comes about from those searches. But you've got to know what those searches are. So, you know, that's where... Go on.
The quote is, first they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win.
There you go.
Then somebody could tell me, we already sent the link, Neil, join. Guys.
We were just talking about you, actually, Neil, so it's okay. We had the decency to do it behind your back while you weren't here.
That's nice. Just tell me, hey, Neil, the link's been sent.
Yes, I'll let you know personally from here forth, Neil.
You know what the problem is? I'm looking all up. I'm making sure. There's no link. There's no link. Then all of a sudden there's the link.
I send it out at roughly the same time every day that I do the show. That would be to say, my wife finishes at 1, and about that sort of time, I start lowering the screen, closing curtains, turning on studio lights, moving out cameras, moving out monitors, and that takes about 20 minutes. Yeah? Then when I'm actually sat down at about 20 past, one of the first things I do is get the link ready and publish it to you guys so that you've got it waiting in the wings while I do the intro. And then as you guys are joining, I'm normally doing the intro. I'll then pause the recording at the end of the intro so I can move around stuff. So when I say you can hear their dulcet tones while I set up for the live show, that's actually a lie. I pause the recording, set it up so it looks pretty, and then I start the show. So Uncut's also strictly a lie too, because it's paused while I move just pieces of, you know, page around so it looks pretty. Anyway, the point being that I distribute the link pretty much at the same time, unless there's a problem, which there hasn't been for a couple of weeks, Neil. I shouldn't say it.
No, the problem is Neil's from New York and they like their links.
Indeed. It's the German influence.
Sauerkraut, bratwurst.
Well, the thing is, here's what happens. I got to keep paying attention because I got different things going on. But when I looked, there was no link. I don't know what happened today. I think you're conspiring against me.
Neil, I did warn you that Nathan was in Skype and active. I don't know why you didn't pay attention after that.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Yeah, what is it? When they decided that we were going to be a sphere when we're not, they said we got to have some invisible force keeping everything from flying off of something spinning in space. So they invented gravity, something no one's ever observed or seen.
Although I do it in the intro, I'm going to encourage everybody who's watching, 42 people, please share the show. It's the first live show in a little while. Well, a week. So yeah, smash that share button, like, comment, all that good stuff. Hopefully we'll get a few more people here. We do not get any YouTube algorithmic love, so the only reason we ever get up to 100 viewers, if you're new here, and one of the 43 people now watching, is because people who smash the share button get it up to 100 pretty quickly, depending on how keen and enthusiastic they are for the show. So please share the show. We'll get onto a video shortly, but we'll do a couple more housekeeping questions in the meantime.
Before you go,
Yeah, go on.
It's hard. I understand what you're saying, but when bigger channels are still calling you a scammer, it makes it even harder.
It's
So,
the
fair
best
to show.
news. It's the best news we ever had, Neil. You watch the rebound from that.
We'll get to that.
Nathan.
So I'll get to that because I did republish some of the videos that had been more popular. Now, while I get criticised for using people's name in videos, it's like not necessarily strictly true when it comes to people like Jaron or Dave Weiss when we're covering Neil deGrasse Tyson, or as an example, I don't know who we're covering today actually, WGN News, considerably bigger than both of them, at like 500,000. Is that right? Something creeping up to 500,000 subscribers. Yeah, I mean, you can accuse us of that, and the reality is we do get more viewers when we cover internal squabbles about science and the scientific method. That is a fact. Therefore, when I go through them and go, right, what am I going to republish over the week that I'm not here? I'm going to pick the ones that have been most popular with the members. Those are the videos that get republished. In other words, the ones that have got the most comments and the most views from members. It's like, obviously, the members have taken it upon themselves to rewatch this or come back to it again because they've enjoyed it and just run out of time because they're obviously lengthy. So therefore, they're the ones that get republished. Now, some of them were specifically about Dave Weiss, Jaron, Whitsitt, etc., some of which got discussed in the pre-show. John's under the impression that Whitsitt doesn't like him. But I think that's unilaterally true for all of us, John. Anyway, we'll get to that after maybe a couple more housekeeping questions, just because we've been away for a little while. If that's okay with you, lads, unless you're super, super keen to discuss all of those video releases over the last week, which are all great. Check them all out.
Well, today's video is the India claim of landing on the moon, and then the second video is Neil deGrasse doubling down on that claim of India supposedly landing on the moon. However, I did post a picture of what you and John were talking about, the flat Earth information loss calculator, so to Master B, so the audience could see, and John's here so he can comment.
And about the begging the question proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator.
Yeah, there's a picture there showing the horizontals and surface level, as we saw. Surface levels going out into space.
Okay. Right, but they've also got the marked with an X labelled horizon, physically, geometrically, straight line to it, Earth curve edge that is claimed to be the end result when it spits out something after the equal sign in this calculation, labelled Earth curve calculator. So where it says horizon in this calculation is a complete lie.
Absolutely.
Well, see, I don't know about that because what it is it's a misinterpretation of the data, right? That horizon is not brought up to surface level to give you the radius of the plane you're standing on. And
Wow.
the differential.
Wow, you're saying because it's labelled horizon dip, that strictly speaking, this useful calculation that's been around since, what, the 1800s, probably earlier, in terms of how they'll deal with the horizon. You're saying that this gives them plausible deniability for future reference because it is a misinterpretation and it's labelled as such with horizon dip. Therefore, the correction's only to surface level. So how are you going to square that circle given that you're seemingly taking this on a plausible deniability route, John?
Well, it is plausible deniability because only with the information we have now about the horizon not being geometric and elevation angles, unless someone can show that these arguments that we're putting forth have been given in the past at the time that this information was put forward, they do have plausible deniability.
Sure, but in the case of somebody who actually fundamentally argues for it being a geometric tangent point horizon, Earth curve based, they can't claim plausible deniability based on the calculation. Only the originators of the calculation could do that. I.e. Mick West, he can only claim ignorance, right? That's his only out. He can't say, oh, well, no. What I was actually saying was the dip to the horizon used by marinators. Marinators? They're making chicken curry. No, mariners is the dip to the surface level when you're correcting. Therefore, yeah, if you're creating this calculation and employing that useful aspect, you can claim as the originator that you've got plausible deniability in terms of how you have interpreted it. But not Mick West. He's physically argued that is Earth curve marked with an X labelled horizon. Number one, from a globe perspective, why wouldn't he? Go on.
Well, but it's constructed, the way it's constructed, right, is, I'm echoing through somebody, but his own misinterpretation, because the math, he's just translating it into math. he's taken the measurements and he's made this graph that they call the Earth curve calculator, but that's just not what it is.
Gotcha. So it's only the title. So in other words, it's just what I've paraphrased as the begging the question, proof of nothing perspective hijacking Earth curve calculator is simply the title that's incorrect, and the interpretation thereafter, reading the title that says you're looking at Earth curve in the maths, which you're not, the interpretation thereafter would be, claimable as ignorance and justifiable. Just a quick shout out to James Mays. Wow, thank you very much. $50. Says, good day to the panel. Support the show, folks. Like you have. Really appreciate it.
Nathan, I'd like to comment on this. That video that Mariner did where he shows the triangle, I'm going to find one and post it up again so it's easy for you to show. He's showing you what John is talking about. Here it is. Let me do both of these, actually. Do this, and I'll do that.
While you're doing that, massive shout out. 72 people watching. Obviously, somebody took heed when I said please smash the share button. So 77 watching, going up. So yeah, thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button. If you've just joined us, welcome. Please share the show. Okay, got your diagram up.
All right, so the Earth curve calculator diagram we just saw, we'll come back to that. The next picture you see is the box where you got the co-altitude after taking an elevation angle, using the horizon and the star, the navigator with a sextant, and then you subtract from 90, which gives you your zenith distance, which is the co-altitude. Now that red line coming down is the 90 degree of the observer. If he was on land, he can establish that with a plumb bob. He can establish that with a bubble section using the spirit level. But he's at sea, so he's forced to take the elevation angle above the horizon of the blue line where the star is directly over the Earth first. All right. So then you must minus that from 90, and then you must times what's the remainder by 60 nautical miles, which gives you 1,800 nautical miles zenith distance, which is the co-altitude. You need two planes there, two lines parallel. Okay, next slide. This was a video we did a week before we went on vacation here. And this was the Mariner saying, look, I could have easily shown you how to do a sextant, but I'm going to show it to you this way. This is what you're doing. And then he draws this right angle triangle and he puts it on a curved surface. And you can see it's a teeter-totter. It can't work. You got diverging zeniths all of a sudden. It doesn't match the previous picture of the box, which is in the celestial navigation books. So what he's showing you here is that if you're looking out at the horizon and you see the sun and you bring it down, this is what it's depicting. Now, if you go to the Earth curve calculator, where X marks the spot, that can't happen. So you got that teeter-totter. So what's happening is that surface level is what he's seeing. He's seeing a flat line, baseline horizontal, all the way to the horizon where he brings the sun down or a star, whatever, and does the waggle, does the rocking to get the zenith distance of the sun against the horizon. So if you can understand what I'm trying to say, this imagery in the Earth curve calculator, as John correctly described, is flat Earth information loss calculator, because that teeter-totter right angle on the globe is that surface level marked with the dotted line. No one ever sees the horizon dipping, except if you're 10 feet above the water line, you have to take your eyes to the water line so that you can have that right angle triangle. I've been on a boat, I've been in the ocean many times where I got no sight of land, and there's nothing falling away from me whatsoever. And if you're going to do an elevation angle, you must have height of eye correction, because all the nautical almanac numbers are based on eyeball on the surface of a level sea, horizontal. It must match the rational horizon, which is the equatorial plane. And if you had a bubble sextant, the sensible horizon, also sometimes known as the rational horizon, at eye level. Both of those are horizontals. It can never work from a curved surface.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Hello, by the way.
Hey, Owen.
Well, if you angle a
Not too bad.
radar,
Here we go. Flat plane required. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, if you angle a radar at it and you measure the return of the bounce signal and the angle that it comes in at, you can get a distance to it.
I love your phraseology. John's phraseology is a testament to the fact that he has gone up against Toon and Ruhif. So automatically, when John has, I'll come back to what he's just said in a second, when he's processed his grey matter to come up with that phraseology, he's automatically anticipating the interruption that will come when he starts saying it. So what he's done is he's incorporated the word angle in the first breath. Just say it again, John, just so I'll make my point by interrupting you, just so you know in advance what's about to happen.
Well, when you angle the radar...
No, we're not going to talk about radar here. Angle the radar. Respect. That's epic.
What's the angular distance to the sun, guys?
No. I don't know. You're not picking up what's going on here. What John's doing is he's incorporating the fact that the moment you mention angle, right, you're going to need a flat plane. Now, John knows this and knows instinctually, because he's, like I say, gone up against ballers, that he's got to get that quintessential flat earth proof into the first statement and breath so that it won't not reach the audience should it be interrupted immediately if there was somebody up against him right now, for instance, like me, an example. Right, John?
Yeah, that's the idea. They don't let you have more than a couple of words.
A couple of breaths, yeah.
Right. Well, I can be that baller for a bit and say that, yeah, well, all this questions about the distance to the sun, well, India's going to land on the sun soon. And then we will have, of course, by an actual touchdown, have an actual Euclidean distance to measure.
But now I can ask the audience, do I take fork in the road number 1 and go with John talking about elevation angles, essentially, not elevation, just angle measurements off a flat plane for radar? Or do I go with number 2, Arwin's segue, that's actually a very useful segue into the video that we're going to cover now, which is about the moon landing. So, which fork in the road do I take, I ask myself.
I wasn't aware of that.
Well, you didn't know.
Whatever you do it in a curry.
Yeah, if I take too long, everyone will slip into a coma. Right, we're going to cover the moon landing video.
Is it Ayurvedic?
Let's just do both. John, can you just round out your example, because it was, strictly speaking, now rumpus and there's distance being put by your own friendly side from your actual point. So if you can round that out, then we'll do the video.
Right. Any claim of a radar bounce distance needs a plane of reference for the measurements. So you got to have a flat Earth to even calculate this crap.
With every day that passes, you as the audience will appreciate watching this show that the statement, you're going to need a flat Earth for that, applies more often than not. 90 people watching. Thank you again to all of you. Smash that share button. Please share the show if you've just got here. Very warm welcome if you have. Okay, so as always, we're going to be covering this videographer. We are cold, apart from 10th, who suggested it. I assume we're all cold to this video. So our reactions are as is. It's called The Final KM. India lands its... How'd you say that? Chandrayaan 3 on the moon?
Yeah, close enough.
Man, you can tell how not up to date with current events I am. I have no idea about this. This is probably only... I've seen about 5 seconds of footage so far on people like Level Earth Observer. Shout out to you, my friend, even though you're critical of us. You'll probably end up calling us a shill. But anyway, that's where I actually saw the moon landing footage. It was on Level Earth Observer's channel. So shout out to you, my friend, if someone can drop a link to you. Like I say, he has been a bit unfriendly because I supported Mark Sargent in his approach, even though Level Earth Observer doesn't appreciate it. Which, to be perfectly honest, neither did I. That's why I approached Mark personally. But there we go. So maybe we're more in common, even though you found me defending Mark Sargent in your comments. Nevertheless, shout out to Level Earth Observer, who's my only foray into this moon landing nonsense from India. So I already kind of know what we're going to get here. But yeah, go and let this YouTuber know. At Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. we critique your video. Obviously, I'm doing it for, is it altruistic? No, that's not the right word, is it? Selfish? Selfish reasons. I'd hoped that he'd put a link to our video in return, were he to respond and say, no, hell no, this stuff isn't cartoons. Nobody believes that the cartoons are real, or something to that effect. We'll see. Anyway, go and let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Have you got any, as always, 10th, any sort of preamble that you want to offer up before we go into this video?
Yeah, this video had an hour plus version of it, not the exact same channel. I found this one that reduced the time because the following video, we're going to bring our good old friend Neil deGrasse Tyson, who comments on what we're going to comment, and we'll see the difference in how he comments versus how we comment.
Oz says, rumours are circling that there's a corner shop on the moon now. Is that English racism? I think it is. Anyway, very amusing. Back in the 80s, it was certainly true. Where I lived in England, I was in a predominantly Muslim part of the UK in Birmingham. And yeah, every corner that was potentially turnable into a shop at the end of a row of houses would be run by somebody Indian. But there we go. It's not necessarily the correct stereotype for the modern age, but thank you for the super chat all the same. Right, let's get into it.
Phase.
Within 1 kilometer of the
जी
surface.
हाँ, अब हम फाइन ब्रेकिंग वेव्स के एकदम करीब आ चुके हैं। हाँ, आप तालियों के गड़गड़ाहट से सुन सकते हैं कि हम लोगों ने तीसरे चरण को भी बहुत ही सफलतापूर्वक हासिल कर लिया है और अभी हम वर्टिकल डिसेंट फेज।
If I can just get a quick thumbs up from the people in the live stream audience that the sound is actually okay. I've turned the gain up on this show today because people were moaning that it was a bit too quiet. There we are, hitting the reds with everything, but it's all leveled correctly. I just want to check that it sounds okay. So if you can give me a thumbs up and say sounds fine or something.
में आ चुके हैं जिसकी शुरुआत भी बहुत ही अच्छे ढंग से हो चुकी है।
I don't speak Spanish. Does anybody else here speak Spanish?
Lot of applause indicates that till now the performance has been nominal.
What are we looking at? What the hell is this supposed to be?
Are you watching from the beginning?
Yeah, I'm watching from the
Okay.
beginning. We've had
All right,
46.
well, I don't see it on the YouTube. I don't see what you're seeing.
Well, it's going out to YouTube. I can see it. I've got my live preview. Good job I don't pay too much attention to what people tell me when the stream is concerned. What we've got on front of us is something that looks like it's out of Battlestar Galactica. And I'm not very good with colours, but it kind of looks gold colour. It's an A shape. What is it? What's that supposed to be?
Well, I'm on YouTube on my phone, and I'm seeing not what you're describing, so it's not showing on my phone.
Okay. Let's not worry about what's shown on your phone. You've seen the video. What I've got is a giant A shape. The letter A. Right. What is it?
It's their lunar lander. It's going to land and deploy some little droid that has wheels and it's going to go on the surface.
Okay. So this is supposed to be the thing they showed us covered in gold foil.
Yeah, basically.
No way. This is god awful CGI, isn't it? I mean, this is atrocious. Go on, did someone have a comment? Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, have they got to the actual calculations of the orbital mechanics they'll use to get that vehicle to the moon, or will they cover that?
I hope so, because I can steal some thunder here. I can sense it. There's gonna be a flat plane involved. There's going to be some celestial sphere calculations and flat planes for that celestial sphere for the orbital mechanics extrapolations to get them the distances to travel to the moon, right, John?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you took the thunder.
I already did steal your thunder. I'm such a bastard. I'm sorry.
We are in the vertical descent phase 1. The altitude is being brought down from 800 meters.
So presumably,
altitude.
It says that this is live, but unless you're a complete Mongol, you've got to appreciate that this can't be live. Who's filming it? Obviously, there's no parallel spaceship running alongside this as it's descending towards the moon, arse first, right? So, while the general consensus would probably take this to be pictures of it landing, somebody with a tiny amount of discernment would go, well, obviously we're not watching live pictures of it descending. It says live in the top because the broadcast is live, i.e. we're receiving her updates live, and the information about what's happening verbally is claimed to be the information of what's occurring live. But what's on screen, I wouldn't think that anybody with any discernment would take this to be real.
Hang on. Before you rush to judge, remember we had, was it Flat Arthur from India? Is that his channel name when he came on?
Well, that's what I was referring to. Flat Earther basically told us that the general consensus would be that only Flat Earthers are saying that this is real. Now, no, there's going to be a 10, 20% made up on the spot by me, part of the Indian populace, that are going to say, oh yeah, that's obviously real. I watched it happen on TV. And then there's going to be 80% of the populace that go, no, we appreciate that we're not, complete idiots with less than 80 IQ that think this was actually some other ship that they didn't tell us about with the camera crew on it. Most people would have enough discernment to know that. But when Flat Earthers say, well, you, the 20% drongos, actually took this to be real, yeah, that's actually part of it. But you normally, in society, is going to go, well, no, I appreciate that all that's strictly about the reality of what's happening is the verbal updates from the person who's announcing, presumably from mission control, to relay it to the media so that we can hear her spitting out whatever, or we've got a direct feed to whoever's on Capcom or whatever it is, the communications line, and that's what we're actually hearing. I don't know. We haven't seen the inside and logistics of what they're claiming to be doing.
I'll go after John.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that altitude that she mentioned. How did they calculate that altitude?
Perfect, you found your in. I don't know, John. Maybe you could tell us. There must be a calculation that we can refer to get that altitude that she's referring to.
I can about guarantee you'll need an angle measurement from a plane of reference.
So when she's talking about the descent rate, she's talking about a descent rate that's originally calculated for this fantasy journey into a reified sphere and a model that was used for various other purposes that weren't for flying, from a flat plane originally. Oh, fascinating. You'll need a flat plane for that descent rate.
Nathan, I've watched many videos on this topic. I chose this one because of the brevity, because we have a second one to follow. But when Flat Arthur came on, when this first happened, he said that if you live in India and you spoke against this in any way, you were unpatriotic. That's the way they've done this mass hypnosis, that India as a country has achieved something only 3 other countries have ever done. And so it's a big accomplishment. And so everyone has pride, and they probably throw parties, have like a Super Bowl party on this. Who knows? I don't know that for sure. But the whole point is that even a person in India could be a flat earther and see how they've mass hypnosed everyone. Now, Chocolate said when this happened that people were coming up to him and said, man, I can't believe that. Now, these are people here in the States that Chocolate is known to be a flat earther to. And then when they saw this, man, they were disturbed because this isn't real, but it's being posed as real.
Got to correct you, Ted. It wouldn't be a Super Bowl party. It would be a Super Bowl party.
Okay. Right. 100 people watching. 103. Wow. Thank you very much to all of you. Smash the share button.
And we are nearing and approaching the lunar surface.
जी, आप अपनी स्क्रीन पे देख सकते हैं कि लैंडर क्या हाइट लगातार कम होता जा रहा है। इस समय हम लैंडिंग साइट के जस्ट ऊपर हैं और इस समय इसकी ऊंचाई लगभग 600 मीटर के आसपास है। इस फेज के दौरान लगभग 150 मीटर के ऊंचाई पे पहुंचने के बाद लैंडर अगेन लगभग 20 से 22 सेकंड के लिए
Okay, what's all this?
Yeah, that checks out.
Hold on a second.
Goodness.
What's all this? What are we looking at now? What's this on screen now? Let's just get a closer look. I'm just going to go away from my mic a sec. Local nav sequence state, vertical descent sequence substate, altitude, vertical velocity, horizontal velocity. What's that?
Ruh-roh.
No, I'm asking, what's that?
That's a reference to a flat plane.
Plane of reference, as Sean said.
So this validates what you just said, John. How interesting.
Yeah.
We are above the landing site. The horizontal as well as the vertical velocity is now being constantly reduced. And the lander module has begun its descent towards the landing site.
The other thing is that to me, a bit like, I need to cross-reference Dilly Gill here, really, don't I? So when Dilly Gill said that they play their hand, NASA, that is quite close to their chest when they're doing their fakery, and one of the methods they employ is something that he coined the term crapovision, which is to make it look crappier than it really is, intentionally to hide some of the fakery. Now, as I see this now, it looks intentionally crappy. In other words, what I just watched was it judder through the frame rate. Now, admittedly, I've just sped the speed up, but that's not going to change the smoothness of how this animation works. It just highlights how crappy the animation is, which makes you kind of wonder, given the level of quality of animation in general, or CG in general, notwithstanding that people would appreciate, let's just accept that they will appreciate that this isn't being filmed by a parallel spacecraft landing next to it so it can get nice footage. They're not that dumb. Why not polish it up? Why not make it look like the gold foil covered thing they showed in the photos that somebody's actually made? You know, they've paid people to wrap that piece of crap in gold foil after presumably producing quite a lot of actual high-tech stuff that's been tested in various different ways to make sure it's functionally accurate. For all their plausible deniability, they've got the real thing. They've got the actual gold foil covered lander. Now we cut to this. Why make it so crappy? There's a level of the deception that I've never really appreciated in this regard. It was the same with the moon landing. When you go back and look at the moon landing, and again, they were claiming that was real when they're filming the LEM come towards the module that's orbiting, the orbiter, right? That's supposed to be filmed with real cameras, but it obviously looks like something out of Thunderbirds on strings. It's really blatant. And you kind of go to yourself, well, I know they could have done a better job than this. We've all seen 2001. We know they could have polished it up, but they didn't. And this is kind of indicative of the same thing. Why make it so crap? Anybody got any ideas?
I have, Nathan, if you can hear me. Hey, everyone. Hey, Nathan.
Hello, good to have you.
Yeah, because... Thank you. The first thing I thought when I saw it is that everything can be made so well these days. Someone who's good with computers and with graphics, a 17-year-old kid on a computer can do a much better, more professional job than that. So why make it so crappy? It's because if they make it look good, then it'll only look the same as all the other fake stuff that's out there that can be made by students. Do you know what I mean? It's like who are learning this type of stuff. It's like it's so easy for you, me, or anyone to get the software and learn how to actually make something look good enough to be put into a movie, that if they make it look like that, then it just looks like what people will see in some movie or some homemade shorts video.
Gotcha.
So they make it look really
I kind of see where you're going.
For that reason.
So you're saying there's a low rent standard that you or I could achieve, but rather than having their garbage be on the same standard as ours at all, just create a different set of crap and have it adhere to that, so it's not comparable to our crap. So our crap gets compared, if we were to make it, like you say, a 17-year-old in a university or whatever, making up their CGI, well, that kid would be comparable to Hollywood standard in terms of polish. But neither Hollywood or the student is going to be compared to this, because it's a completely different ball game. It's a totally different type of crap. It's not like it's just not polished. It's in a different league. It's like a different game. You know what I mean?
Nathan.
Go on.
Nathan, you know it's real because it looks so fake.
Hey, I was just going to say Elon Musk knows why. But you beat me to it.
Maybe. There's a level of psychology that I don't appreciate here. I can say I can understand what Dilly Gill disseminates in terms of crapovision, but that's when you're filming men on high wire and then broadcasting that to an audience that sat 30 feet away from a 50-inch LCD TV. And then the people who are sat next to the TV are facing away from it. They're the hosts. And their cameras, 2 of them, are at different angles. One excludes the ceiling, because they're all on high wire in the ISS, and the other doesn't. But they incorporate the ceiling and removal of any artifacts from the wires in post-production, where they polish it all up. In the meantime, the live broadcast where someone's dangling in space can have a member of the audience raise their hand and say to the host, can you just ask them if they ever have any spillages on the ISS? And then the host relays the information, or the person who's live linked from the ISS, claimed to be in space, immediately hears it with whatever 2-second delay, and then just answers on the fly, right? Their question that's come up from a live audience member. The whole thing convinces you of the magic trick. But the cameras that are filming the audience and the host and the TV all see a very low-res, fuzzy, lower camera angle, live link-up image, and nobody knows the difference. That's how the magic trick's done. Well, Dilly Gill explained that and compared post and pre-production live to each other after the fact. You can see it's very different angles. Not very different, but different. Enough for them to put in the ceiling like they did in the promo footage that you see from the film Gravity, with Sandra Bullock floating around doing the exact same thing. Now, obviously, again, the standard, when you look at the polished version that Hollywood present for Sandra Bullock versus the live link-up, it's a totally different game. Now, they're not. They're both space, but this isn't comparable to Thunderbirds either, is it? Again, a different game. They've all got different standards to adhere to. It's just this is lower, even by NASA's crapovision standards. This is crapovision in CGI. You're like, why have you taken it to this extreme? So that you can say, no, obviously this isn't filmed. Look how crap it is. I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with, unless I'm missing one layer of psychology.
I can come up with something. No, I can come up with something. The society is so dumbed down, they know they could get away with it because they are getting away with it.
I wouldn't say Kent is wrong, right? Kent is right there. But what I would say is, if you look at the movie Jaws, the majority of that is left up to an imagination. So when you go in swimming, the movie you think about is Jaws, right? That has a kind of you're thinking about sharks because of Jaws, because they showed you just enough shark, right? Even though it was a big rubber shark, they showed you just enough to terrify you. So what it is with things like this is that you make up the bits that they're not showing you in your own imagination, and that confirms it for yourself, if you understand what I mean.
I do, but that's chance. So that was luck. I know what you're saying. What you're saying is less is more in that respect. But they didn't know that when they produced the film. So what they were with, I know we're not on a tangent, this will link back, I promise. Brian's absolutely correct, but for the example being the precedent that was set by accident. In other words, not revealing too much of your hand, as Dilly Gill puts it, playing your cards close to your chest, was the inevitable outcome of having an absolute crap animatronic shark. So they were plagued with errors and couldn't get much footage of it. So they had to downplay how much you saw of the animatronic shark. But that had the adverse effect of building the suspense. Not seeing as much of the shark has led on to endless horror flicks that have used that principle. But before that, you know, the holding back on the animatronic monster wasn't their intention when they made it. And I agree, Brian's right. As an example, they've used the psychological effects that were observed after the fact with Jaws and then employed them by playing their hands close to their chest and not revealing too much information. Only doing basic stuff. The guy's just dangling. He's not doing anything. He's just eating a Meals on Wheels microwave dinner. And that's it. That's all you see. In whatever Gravity, they're fighting explosions and flying out into space and negotiating around with all sorts of really clever angles that make it look glorious. Well, that's not what they do with NASA. It's just some guy dangling eating dinner doing something totally mundane. So you're almost on the edge of snoozing by the time you finish watching it. But you remember that the guy was in space because that's what you watched. And so long as that premise is sold, you don't need anything else to sell the illusion.
That would be my second point. The first point was Audience is dumbed down. They know they get away with it. The second point is something we always talk about. We're talking about a violation of the second law of thermodynamics here. They don't want us to talk about that. They want two sides divided on how phony it looks, but it's out there. And one side's going to fight that it's out there and they just use this as a way of showing it, but it's really there. The other side is saying, no, look how fake it is, avoiding the whole fact that you can't even go there.
Exactly, Ted. And on YouTube, well, on TikTok, my wife showed me a video of, the disc in space. And it says, India finally proves flat Earth, the pancake in space, mocking flat earthers. So, yeah, that's what it's meant to do.
Maybe.
Well, Nathan, if you take your example earlier when you said, you're kind of answering your own question, I think, when you said, I wasn't specifically talking about Joe, I was just using that as an example. If you look at 2001 and then you look at the claimed moon landings, what looks a lot better? I mean, they're crapping it down the way. So you are more likely to accept it from an imagination point of view. That's how I would view it. Now, I could be wrong. That you make up the rest with your own imagination.
Sure. But I mean, Hollywood, to this day, still stealing or repurposing some of the over-dramatized, glitzy effects used in Space Odyssey. I.e., Guardians of the Galaxy 3 have got a scene where they've got a little kid running around on a hamster wheel while the camera spins, and the guy who's watching seems to be spinning around on the ship that he's on while this hamster wheel spins and the camera spins in the opposite direction. You're like, okay, totally stolen from 2001. Now, by comparison, when you look at my example earlier with a guy just dangling eating a microwave dinner, it's a different game, isn't it? Now, I get you're agreeing with me. You're saying, well, just don't over-egg the pudding when there's no need to. But it still brings us back to the original question. We will get to the outer space is fake. Let's just pause on this image, quite handy as it is, right? So the point, let's segue back onto what the panel was just talking about, or Neil brought up specifically, outer space is fake. If the journey between this, where we're claimed to be sat wherever we are now, or what we are now, about Florida-ish, something like that, and you're supposed to fly out to the moon, then the area between the two is 10 to the minus 17 torr sky vacuum. All of the gas that we're currently breathing at high pressure would just immediately vacate into this area. In other words, if the rocket can take off from India, which is not on this picture, and travel out, then so can all the gas. It's just that simple. In other words, the area they're travelling through is a violation of natural law. You can't have gas pressure without containment, and you need a containerless system for a rocket to leave the system. Therefore, so can all the gas. So the whole premise of the journey itself is debunked, which is why typically we don't cover this very often. Yeah, this is a big enough profile event for us to cover it, but typically speaking, we're not covering space on NASA and ISS fakery ever. Why? Well, because if anybody ever brings it up, we just ask them, how can you have gas pressure without a container? Let's do that. Let's ask that housekeeping question. Is there any evidence that you can have gas pressure without containment?
None whatsoever.
No.
In fact,
Absolutely
you can't
not.
even have a vacuum without a container.
Right.
Exactly.
There we go. That's why we
You
don't
know,
often cover this. Go on, John.
In relation to this, I asked my son the other day if he thought he lived in outer space, and he said no. I said, so where do you draw, or where is the container that separates you from outer space? If you don't think you live in outer space, then why would you think you live in this model they're showing you?
It's just wrong. As far as NASA are concerned, at least, space starts at sea level.
That would be my third point. So, first point, the people are dumbed down. Second point, it's a violation of the second law of thermodynamics to begin with. Third point, from cradle to now, this is what they're been brainwashed with. They can't get out of this paradigm. The movies, the books, the imagery. India can get away with this crap vision because since that child in the womb came out from the crib to now say they're 28 years old, they've believed in space. They've believed in moon landing. Doesn't matter what you show these people. They're under a
Ironically,
spell.
I just wanted to point out something about the kids. You talk about from cradle to whatever. Do you know what kids want to be these days? It used to be, when I was growing up, me included, I wanted to be a spaceman because it was cool. What do kids want to be now? A YouTuber. That's the top.
Well, there's plenty of
that's the
space
top
for that.
thing kids want to be. They want to be a YouTuber. Isn't that nuts?
No, because you can make money being a YouTuber. There's plenty of space for that.
Yeah, but space was far more exciting. I remember getting space Lego and being absolutely overjoyed with the prospect of fantasizing about space with the Lego. A couple of quick shout outs. Shout out to Alaric. Am I saying that right? Hopefully. Alaric87. He says, morning, showing support. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. It's just let chocolate saying in. Also, shout out to Retro Bill. He says, if the lunar lander, in quotes, crashes on the surface, will the animated clip art emoji break into pieces like a video game? No. Yeah, it's one of those things, Retro Bill. They know in advance. It's shocking, I know, whether or not it's going to crash. Yeah? Kind of preordained to succeed. They've already decided it's going to succeed. But thank you for the super chat. Go ahead, Tenth.
Yeah, the flat Earth side has been so demonized by the algorithms and everything else that the common response I get when I talk to a newbie, you're not one of those flat earthers, are you? I said, why do you say that? Well, because they're making every flat earther look like a nutcase. All right. Well, we're asking good questions and we can't get any good answers to our questions. And then when we show this crapple vision, they're embarrassed. I can imagine Toon and Ruhif right now saying, why did India do that? That just destroys everything we thought we had. Because it's so bad that even anti-flat earthers and globers are embarrassed by this imagery because they know our arguments. But the average guy doesn't know our arguments. And when we give him solid arguments, we have to say, do you have logic and reason? Do you have the capacity to know when you're being swindled? Do you know when you're being conned out of something? How would you know? And these are the things that they don't think about because they've already been programmed for the globe since the cradle and then programmed currently to think every flat earth discussion is from a nutcase wearing a tinfoil hat.
I think the idea is that we argue about it, though.
Good morning,
whether or
guys.
not it'll work in space, whether or not the images are fake. Hey, who's just said hello? Was it Chocolate?
Yes, sir.
Good to have you. I think the point is
guys.
that we argue about it, whether or not the rockets will work in a sky vacuum. All that sort of stuff is feeding the feast of nonsense argumentation that we all got when we arrived. You know, looking at NASA fakery means we're talking about them. You know, that it doesn't matter if it's negative or positive publicity. There's no such thing as bad publicity for NASA in that regard. If you're arguing about whether or not rockets can work in space, you're accepting that space is real. Whereas, like I say, we cut that off at the knees before we even get into images from space and talking about, oh, look, this guy fades out in an edit when he transitions from one place to another. Okay. This guy drops his keys while he's floating around on high wires. Okay. This outside shot looks like it's got a rat running around. This one looks like it's got a guy holding the model up by string in a black outfit. Okay. Outer space is fake. There's no sky vacuum. Every single claim that you could argue about endlessly that I just listed can be demolished with one sentence. Yeah, there's no sky vacuum. Outer space is fake. All of those journeys, all of those footages, all those clips, all of those little fakery things that you go through, not really necessary. Once you know that, you know, it's akin to arguing about how things work in Narnia. Yeah, well, I'm sure that the gas lamp could just provide itself fuel forever. Who cares? It's in Narnia. It's in a fantasy land. You know, there is no Narnia. There is no outer space. So
but
go on.
Nathan, everyone knows Narnia is a metaphor. Not everyone knows this is a metaphor for. They think this is real. This is the brainwashing since birth. So this is why the housekeeping questions are solid. You don't need to go into all this stuff because it's an impossibility to have a vacuum next to gas pressure. The whole argument dies there. But we're talking about people who haven't reasoned or used logic to even test what they've been brought up with until they're challenged. So something has to give. Something in life happens to them where they start mistrusting government agencies or the narrative from the school system. Something has to happen for doubt to enter in. And when that happens, it's a possibility they can see the lies. But until then, they believe it.
Well, the only question I'd ask outside of can you have gas pressure without a container? If I was going to entertain any question outside of that, and I've thought about this, would be, what did NASA ever give us? Besides Velcro, I can't think of anything else that NASA actually gave us, the world, that mattered.
Hang.
I was just going to say that. Tang.
Bang. What? No, nothing. I mean, what you're saying, Brian, is what do they offer that can be put into practical application as a result of billions invested in space travel?
There's something playing behind you, Nathan. There's something.
Oh, intentionally.
Yeah,
I did. Me. I've put it on. We're reacting to this video, and it's utterly boring. So rather than playing a little section of it and going, it's just the same crappy CGI image, and somebody, people. Here we go. Let's just pause. What we've got on screen now, right, is a lot of Indians standing up in a control room and clapping and smiling. Now, what we saw preceding that was the exact same footage that had been up for the last 35, 40 seconds. In other words, there's no correlation between their elation and what's going on screen. Now, obviously, you could just say, oh, that's just they don't know how long it's going to take to descend, and the footage is 5 minutes, and it actually only took them 3, so you've got 2 minutes of them still descend. You could make up excuses, but this kind of elation that they're experiencing is because they're all under the misapprehension that what they've just achieved, because their monitors in front of them say that they've just landed, or whatever it is that they're cheering about in this process. This is what they've actually got to go on. Now, it's not particularly big in terms of what you can see on screen now, but they're all just sat in front of monitors. Now, as we've already pointed out, they're not watching a live feed of the thing landing, are they? Right? So what are they watching? They're all just watching numbers. Now, every single person here, you won't see any dishonesty in their relation. They all genuinely believe they've just achieved something based on the numbers they've seen on this monitor. They haven't. It's like saying, yes, we won the war in Narnia. Woo! Now, because they all believe Narnia is a real place to have a war in, they're all really pleased. Now, we all know that there is no war, there is no Narnia, there is no landing, there is no space. They don't know that. They're just going on the data. In other words, these people are all sadly deceived. Now, like we had to discuss in 2014, 15, 16, when we were still covering this stuff, the compartmentalization of NASA means that every single person, engineer, technician, reporter, who works for NASA, none of them are lying. It's not like every single person in this room that's elated is putting it on. No, they're not. No, they actually are elated with their performance and the stats that have been presented to them on these monitors. Yeah, that's how it works. So if you speak to any of these people, they'll give you testimony to how they landed on the moon, because they genuinely believe it to be the case. They were part of it. No, they weren't. We know they weren't. But we don't have to get into that debate. We don't have to demean their, if they're a technician, ability in technical terms when they actually created something and wrapped it in gold foil and tested it and made sure it would work and would stand the rigours of what they thought it would go through. Yeah? Now, I don't know what they do with that technology after they blast it off in a firework. Probably dump it somewhere and then collect up the remnants so nobody ever finds out. But does the technician know that it's just been smashed into the ground here on Earth? No. They think it's made its way to the moon and they're very proud of their work. Now, how have I got all this concise summary when we don't cover this stuff? Well, I got it all from Jaren. Credit where credit's due. This concise summary came to you by the lips of Jaren originally, who disseminated this as articulately as I did just then, right? Because that's how this used to get covered. Now, yes, I can paraphrase Jaren's exceptional dissemination of how compartmentalization would leave you with a lot of people believing that they've actually done this. His example was somebody who claimed his uncle had created a part for the Saturn V. Okay, I'm sure he did. Doesn't mean it wasn't dumped in the Bermuda Triangle after you watching a fireworks show. Doesn't mean that it was even on the firework. You know what I mean? But there we go. It doesn't change the fact that there's very few people that need to be part of the actual lie. The perpetration of the lie to dupe these people and everybody else. Now, it's so successful, that's why it's made its way to us. Now, the Chinese one didn't. When you ask anybody in the Western world, us, what about the Chinese landing? They'll go, what? What Chinese landing?
Nah.
Look,
Go on,
when you
Let's
see
not talk about that one.
when you see when you see satellites with solar panels being taken up into the sky with balloons held up by cranes, and then they're trying to tell us that spaceships take them up way out there into space and they're orbiting. You say, then why do you have these balloons? Does balloons go into space? I thought they pop at a certain point. And then Google's
of course,
got...
that's why NASA spends the most money in the world, I believe, on helium.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. They
that
do
makes
buy the
sense.
most helium, but even Google had plans, probably is already in action, is a solar-powered glider with a satellite that could stay in the sky for 5 years.
Minor correction.
Now,
Just minor correction. Helium are the in terms of their consumption, they're at the top of the consumption of helium. They're not spending money or producing or anything else. They consume the most helium of anybody.
Lots of birthday parties in NASA, probably, right? Okay. Now, well, I'm almost done. So I traveled 2.5 hours to a state park, and I posted some pictures of a beautiful lake. And a majority of that travel, no phone reception, no radio, nothing, no GPS, Zippo. Not enough towers, not enough repeaters.
Yeah, there is no satellites. Satellites fall under the same category as ISS fakery, trips to the moon, trips to Mars. It's all fake. There are no orbits. Now, do we know of circular wind patterns that could be utilised for balloon satellites that we know exist now? I mean, you saw earlier on this the stream of cards that are currently running, right, with Black Swan versus Refraction. Earlier, you had The Simpsons from about mid-90s, maybe it's not, maybe it's early 2000s, but they're showing the Fox satellite, and it's just dangling on a few helium balloons, rickety with the panels falling off it, as Lisa looks through a telescope. That's what she sees, the Fox satellite, in quotes, right? Well, they were way ahead of the game. They knew that we'd be exposed to this stuff further down the line, and now we are. Now it's openly admitted. Yeah, we've got balloon satellites, yeah. Okay, well, what about the ones that we get normal footage for those, right? They are low rent, no frills, just someone with a camera filming a launch. All looks very real. There's nothing fake about it, right? Well, again, totally different game. Yeah, it's not glitzy and glamour. There's no edits. There's no explosions going off. There's no countdowns or people in... There's nothing like that when they launch them. It's just a truck. Some guy pulls a lever and it goes clunk and off it goes. No countdown. No mission control. Nothing. But the footage looks real, because it is. Meanwhile, satellites claim to be in a sky vacuum in orbit. Who's rumpusing me? Meanwhile, sky vacuum-based orbital satellite. Where's the just real footage of them? No, there isn't any. Go on, whoever that was.
I was gonna say there's no switch to the CGI panel that always happens when we watch rockets, right? You see the live footage, and then all of a sudden, now we switch to cartoon version. You don't get that when you watch balloons. It's just, hey, look, it's the blue, it's still there.
Yeah, there it is. Off it goes.
Yeah.
I have 2 points about this. One, the existence of balloon satellites does not. It would be a non sequitur to say that proves the other satellites don't exist. But the orbital assertion requires a plane of reference. So where are they getting that plane of reference to do their orbital mechanics?
Well, they're not when they're inferring Earth spherical. So the mechanics and the maths that they're basing it on are going to be derived from a flat plane in the first instance, and then can be misinterpreted to the idea and notion of a heliocentric world with the sphere Earth and things falling around it. But that simply isn't the case.
Well, that famous saying, the only thing that NASA ever brought to space was your imagination. That says it all. Because without, see, what they are is they're masters in psychology. And they know what the people want, what the people need to believe. Because that's all they need is people's belief. And if they can show you something that will allow you to fill in the gaps with your own imagination, and all those gaps are helped then by Hollywood movies and media. You know, your own imagination is what created heliocentric space, if you know what I mean. So,
Whoever gave me this photo, thank you. So here we go. The no glitz, no glamour, however, very high resolution image that is in no way fake. But do you see the industrial light and magic poles all the way around this balloon as it takes off? No. Do you see a rather dirty, ugly crane holding it? Yeah. Where are all the people? Where are the crowds? Right. Yeah, this is just a normal picture of something happening that does take place. There's far less glitz and glamour about it. There's no cutting to the fake balloon in CGI form. There's no necessity for that. Should I extend the show a little bit? Just going to do a quick appeal. We've got 100 people watching, still 101 people watching, right? Please share the show. If we can get up to 120 people, I'll extend the show out and we'll cover this latest video, which is on screen now, which is Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about India landing on the moon's south pole. Okay. We'll cover that as well.
Oh, really?
But before we do, again, please let... I've covered the name of the channel. WGN News know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me in the meantime, as I've played all the way through. It was only a short video, but I played the footage so we could react to it. We saw the people clapping and cheering, and hopefully we did a good job. Don't normally cover it, like I say, but please let them know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. The vain hope that they may indeed respond to us and tell us how absurd it is to even assume that this stuff would be taken to be real, as Flat Earther was explaining.
Is this whole point? Sorry.
Go on, Adam. We haven't heard from you yet, so go ahead. Hello.
Because I'm dipping in and out here, but did I hear the southern pole of the moon? So is this a magnetic pole or a point of rotational pole?
I'm at a loss to answer that, I'm afraid, Adam.
I was going to go with it's a polar coordinate, Adam, from a flat plane, but you probably have something with the magnetic side of that.
Well, just a simple question. If you're going to state this thing, at least state what it actually is instead of just saying it as saying. So your brain will fill the gaps in.
That's the point.
It's the pole on the moon.
It's the title. Like you've seen Yes Minister, right?
Yeah.
I've given the example several times where the dirty secret, the bit that you don't really want to talk about, you put that as the title. Well, in this instance, that's what they're doing in Neil deGrasse Tyson. There's no way he's going to actually talk about the moon's south pole, but it's there in the title.
Are you certain about that?
I mean, in terms of... let me qualify what I meant. In terms of Adam's question about what that actually is he going to be defining it specifically, as Adam would hope to answer that question? The answer to that is no. Yeah, he's going to be talking about the moon's south pole, with the assumption that it is what, Adam? That's the point.
Well, he's going to, and I won't spoil the surprise, he's going to divert Adam's question and say there's something important there we're going to find out about, taking you even further into the ridiculousness.
Check it out. Somebody's taken heed. 107 people watching, rising slowly. So if we do get 120 people watching, we will cover this video today live. 106. Somebody's taken back their share. We'll see. We might round out in the next 5 minutes. We'll see.
Just real quick, to have the polar coordinate, though, they would first need a plane of reference to get that polar coordinate. So where are they getting that?
Well, from the flat plane of Earth that we dwell atop. That's how it all gets derived. Earth is flat and all roads lead to a flat Earth.
Well, no, I'm saying even the calculation of the moon's poles, they're going to need that equatorial plane of the moon, right? So in essence, mathematically, they're claiming they're leaving one flat plane and going to another flat plane.
Well, no,
in the
I
sky.
don't know if that's the case. I mean, mathematically, I don't know how they derive the journey, which is presumably why Adam asked the question about what do they mean by South Pole, because in terms of a geometric reference point to calculate off a flat plane, which you're not wrong about, how do they describe it? Has any of us ever seen the maths for the described journey? They're always talking about things like this. Is interesting. They were talking about, or Tyson specifically was talking about that they know they went to the moon because of the calculations of the fuel consumed. Well, hang on a second. Now we know that they're going to need Earth as a flat plane of reference to give them their orbital mechanics, their distances, their Venus assumptions, all of the above, to give them their distance. When you actually plug that in as maths, as you now question, John, what do they actually calculate? Do they calculate that plane of reference to another different plane of reference? I'm struggling to wrap my head around what they would actually do in the maths to claim the calculation for the fuel. I want to see those calculations. He's mentioned them enough. Who's ever seen them? To give them this bullshit story where we say, oh, who cares? Space is fake. It doesn't matter that they can say they can calculate the fuel used, therefore it can't be fake. Why would you drop that in? It's like Rumpus back in 2015 dropping in that sextants prove a globe. Oh, why would you drop that in? What you mean you can calculate the journey and the fuel used on the journey? Okay, I'll call you bluff. Let's not skirt around it and point out the space is fake, so it's absurd anyway. Let's see those calculations and see what you're actually doing. How are you calculating how much fuel you'll use on the 250,000 miles or whatever it is? What do you do?
Did they cover that already by saying that they've already lost all the telemetry data along with destroying the technology?
Oh, you're telling me that when I ask for the calculation, they'll say, oh, all of those very complicated maths for the fuel consumption were lost with the telemetry data. So Neil deGrasse Tyson's just basically lying through his back teeth when he says that we know the maths. We don't, we lost it. So even his claim that the maths proves it isn't fake, we haven't got that maths anymore. So what? Yeah. It doesn't prove that it's not fake. Would be the way they'd hope you argue.
It might sound silly, but that might be exactly what it is, right? Because they already believe they've gone to the moon, right? And then they've come back. So now that they've come back, they've done it already. Well, what do all the Globers say? Oh, they don't need to go back. They already went there, which is what they use to cover why. Oh, they destroyed the telemetry data. They lost the telemetry data and destroyed the technology, right? So that's the excuse they use. So Neil deGrasse Tyson could just sit there and say, yeah, we calculated, we know we went because we calculated. So that's how we know we went. Now, we already went, so we don't need those calculations anymore. Right?
Morning, y'all.
And that works on people. People have literally said to me, yeah, we don't need to go back there. We already went. Okay. So why would we need the technology and all that? People are crazy with that.
Good morning, y'all.
What up,
hey,
D-Rose?
I got an idea. We can. Oh,
yeah, D-Rose.
Yeah, go on.
No, I got an idea where we can find those calculations, Chocolate. Why don't we check out Hidden Figures again? Let's review that movie with Taraji P. Henson, because they supposedly had some things written down, supposed to be the figures that was the calculations for the distance and the fuel measurement and all of that. Being facetious, but
is that
it is there.
Was that supposed to be about the lady or something who came up with the calculations?
Yes,
or is it two ladies?
Yeah, that was. Yeah, remember we mentioned that before. That's how they grabbed the demographic, and they try to grab the support of saying, "Oh, it was two sisters." The same thing with Tyson.
I remember this.
How you discredit?
Didn't she use
these two African American women?
I was just about to say that it was an African American woman. Therefore, there was some aspect of that pulled into it as well, was there not? I do remember this.
Yes, two of them going through discriminatory, oppression during the Nassau sexism, misogynism, and racism. So how dare
what was the name of the movie?
The moon landing. Hidden Figures. And they wrote down these calculations, and that was a success. They were the key to the success of the lunar landing. African Americans don't appreciate
No
you
way.
disrespecting the lunar landing.
So that movie,
Yes.
good quality, specifically muddies the waters for Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim and the telemetry data and the overall bullshit of the journey and the overriding point that it's not real because it's not real space. They can't travel through it. This all links back. It's just one big, massive muddying of the waters, isn't it? Well, now we've got an extra set of calculations by somebody of the African American community. Let's all focus our attention on the fact that she's black. Don't forget she's black. Is everyone paying attention? She's black. I just want to take a poll from the audience. Does everyone remember that specific detail? Oh, yeah, by the way, something about maths and moon travel and yeah. But she was oppressed. God damn it. Right? More muddying of the waters and utilising that particular aspect. That's why that's made its way to the mainstream. Shocking, isn't it? The things they'll exploit to muddy the waters.
Precisely. And you know, people walk on eggshells and tread carefully trying to discredit the moon landing because then you're discrediting the success and the achievements of an African American woman who contributed to the great achievement of USA going to the moon.
Well, just want to add in something here, right? That any calculations for fuel usage will have to have a separate calculation involved. And that calculation has to be a force of gravity because they're dealing with attractive forces orbits. So any calculation has to add in force of gravity. It has to, for fuel, for anything to do with the journey. It has to add in force of gravity.
That was the other time that Neil deGrasse Tyson was on Joe Rogan or wherever he talks, right? The first time he said, oh, it could have been the same episode. He said, yeah, we know because we calculated the fuel. And then I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the same one, but he said, yeah, we obviously we use general relativity to get to the moon. So we could use anything we want as long as I say it because I'm Neil deGrasse Tyson. A decade ago? Is it the same shit?
What? Hang on. What are you talking about?
What are you Oh, so it's water. Oh
Yes,
my God.
Yes.
You found water on the moon.
Oh no, the meteorites carrying ice coolers landed in the South Pole, and we can find water. We study ice coolers from meteorites.
I thought that was a really great way to end the live show. So the way that we are manipulated on a social level is just fascinating. It makes me smile. It shouldn't, but it does.
I actually want to go find that movie though. I want to watch that. I
posted it in Skype for you. You can check it out.
Thanks.
Also, the initial.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
No,
cool.
the movie in question, D-Rose knows this. They would make her walk to a different bathroom than what the whites were using as well.
Let's focus on that. Forget about the maths.
Yep.
Before we do forget about the maths real quick, the initial calculations for the distance to the moon were using parallax calculations.
Oh, I just stepped away from the mic. You're going to need a flat earth for that.
Yeah.
Just about to get a coffee. Nobody else picked up what you're putting down. I'll run back and do it.
My bad.
I already did.
He did it while you were rounding
yeah,
out,
so,
Nathan.
yeah, a couple of weeks ago you did do it. Yes, Brian, that's right.
Well, obviously they would know they need a flat plane. They use a space sextant on their way there.
With a plumb bob. Come on, let's get to Neil deGrasse Tyson's video. Let's do it. It's short.
No, we'll do it tomorrow on the live stream.
Nobody was asking.
Oh, Eli wants it.
Oh, well, if Eli wants it.
Nobody was asking me.
I'm making a thumbnail. I've got a schedule to keep. I need a coffee in me. I'm going to be doing two things at once as it is, right? So I'm going to be making a thumbnail and making a coffee for 5 minutes minimum.
Yeah, I guess you haven't heard of the song Eli's Coming from Three Dog Night, have you?
Yeah, I just want to point this out, right? Listen, go back and watch your little bit of presentation, right, 10th. And what you'll see is, I'm not even joking, there must have been 35 maybe button presses during that sequence for me to transition between all the different things that you said, all the different thumbnails, slides, whatever you call them, between two different formats, between the stuff that's on G+ and Skype, it's all simultaneously, all being transitioned seamlessly as you said what you were saying. Go back and have a look and tell me I'm not absolutely ace.
You are now in my mind gadget man with 10 things coming out of your body doing things.
Well, I've just got it all at my fingertips. So my Stream Deck, which is the thing that broke, shout out to Craig, my technician, who I took in, and literally within 3 hours he brought it back all soldered up and working correctly. Fantastic. Anyway, that when it all broke, suddenly I can't do that. It's like you're going to have to give me 5, maybe 6 seconds to press all these buttons with the mouse, and it's just a nightmare. Whereas now I can go to the screen for the various different. Anyway, I won't bore you with the technical details. Just go back and watch it, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah. Next time, use a rabbit. It's faster than the mouse.
Anyway, I need to make a thumbnail, and I need to make a coffee.
Okay, go make a thumbnail, make a coffee. Brian, what's going on? We'll talk while he's doing that.
I've got a bit of housekeeping question, if Righteous is there.
Yeah.
Will you respond to me in Skype, and then I can send you your new logo for Science versus Pseudoscience?
Okay.
Thank you. That's it. That's admin done, 10th.
Oh, okay. No, I'm trying to fill up the time here because he's making coffee. Brian, what's going on?
I posted a video. Hey, Ken. I posted a video last night in Master B that would be a good review. A 12-minute video. But it's about...
I watched it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talked about it in the pre-show.
There's a bit of... Sorry?
We talked about it in the pre-show as well.
Oh, did you? You didn't watch it, though, did you? You didn't review it on the show. I think it'd be something... It'd be good to go into maybe in the after show if he wants to keep the other video for tomorrow.
Well, tomorrow's video, if he's going to save Neil deGrasse, is short, so I could put that up as a second video tomorrow.
Well, I say to him, I'm okay with doing it now. I don't mind. I reckon it would be good now because we will probably join. We have Adam here. We will probably join. As two people who would understand some of what they're talking about in more complexity.
Yep.
Whereas if you do it early in the day, QE won't be there. Because one of the fellas, this guy who got a Northern Ireland accent.
Lennox.
Yeah, I posted a video about him some while ago where he's talking in some university in England.
I saw that one too.
He's like...
That's funny. I was just watching that guy a few days ago. That's so funny you said that.
He's trying to be QE. That's what it's like. It's like, sorry,
There's
we're way
a
ahead of
couple
you.
of them.
Yeah, we're way ahead of you there. Sorry. We're miles ahead of you. Especially the guy who made that video. Because some of the caveats he adds in is like, you don't have a clue. You know what I mean? Some of the things he says is like, you don't have a clue. Yeah. Yep. So I just say it might be a good video to do now. I don't know.
They may have their fingers or the pulse on the truth on DNA and how Darwin's whole theory is wrong, etc. But they're so deceived by the heliocentric model that they intertwine that as a contrast of ever since, like the host on this video I saw, the more recent one that you posted, the host who's got a little image of himself overlaid when these four people are talking. He's talking about better instruments came and we know we're on the globe.
Yeah, that's what I think Nathan would really like this. Nathan would really react well to this. Well, he might get a bit angry at it. Because they're talking about actual science proving there has to be a creator, but then they're talking about a lot of absolute rubbish in the process, like the narrator or whatever.
The narrator. The four people weren't saying it, he was saying it.
Yeah, but the four people are hoodwinked as well.
Of course.
Because if you said to them, the Earth is not a globe, we're not in a heliocentric vacuum of space, they would go, look at you as if you have four heads.
Look,
you know what I mean?
That's why I hate when they go into that shit, because they always try to link it to that.
No, don't miss what's happening here. You can trash Darwin, evolution, everything that's been there, supposedly true once, and you can say it's all fake now. and you'll be respected in universities. But the minute you go against the heliocentric globe model, that's one too far step you took. And they know that. They can't say anything. That's why pilots don't say anything.
Yeah, but these guys, they're definitely, don't hold your breath waiting for them to say it.
They're
These
not.
guys
They're not going to say it.
definitely believe
that's
that with all their heart. You know, you hear people, smart motherfuckers like Eric Weinstein, right? Like you listen to him, he's pretty smart dude. And then, but at the same time, the guy thinks the only way to have humanity survive is to get off the planet. It's like, what are you talking about, man? What are you saying? How are you so smart? And then you're like, but the only way we're going to survive is to get off this rock.
Well, how's it,
And we
chocolate?
can't depend on the other two rocks that are slightly possible, which are the moon and Mars.
Chocolate,
Well,
how is it?
Miggy's favorite Bible quote speaks about something, and I hope 10th you'll know something about a fool will look to the ends of the earth.
It's probably in Proverbs. If I type in fool, it'll come up with a bunch of verses in Proverbs. But let me just comment on something. Chocolate, you and I, when we heard this crap when we were younger, we said, "No, I don't accept it. I don't believe it." How smart were we to know it was a lie at that age? And these guys with PhDs, in order to get them, they got to carry the company line before they can get their tenure. After that, they can say anything they want. And we see they can't get fired for saying anything they want or dress the way they want now after they got tenure. But if you're going to go through the system, you have to agree. Like Gary Hammersheim said that in order for him to get his degrees, he had to agree with the status quo until he got there, and then he could have differences afterwards. So you're not ever going to move up the ladder of universities or anything unless you carry the heliocentric globe model. But we were smart enough as kids to know it's bullcrap.
Hold on. Not just you. I got sent to the back of the classroom, too.
I didn't. I'm just talking about chocolate
Honestly,
and I'm not excluding anybody. I'm just
wouldn't even
saying.
say it's about being smart. I would think it's just there are some things that just are like the fantasy of it, right? There are some people who are just absolutely fascinated by the heliocentric model, especially when you're a kid, right? And then there are other kids who are just going to look at that and say, that doesn't seem real. It's a cool story. And don't get me wrong. I've been fascinated by the heliocentric model. It's been something that's been around since I've been a kid, right? It's something I've had to think about, but in relation to reality, it just doesn't connect for me. But for some people, it absolutely connects. That is their reality.
That's obvious. That's obvious. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about my teacher saying to me when it was a subject of evolution in this one instance, and I said, "There's no way we came from chimpanzees. Absolutely no way. It doesn't make any sense. There's no transition. Blah 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 blah." And then he said, "Look." After I kept raising my hand on this issue, he says, "Look, I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it." You've heard that story from me before. So it's like, well, if you don't believe it, but you got to teach it, then that means other things you're teaching me you don't believe either.
Well, I'd say some people came from chimpanzees. We have a few borders now. they meet that criteria. Let's be honest.
Well, listen, just because you've experienced guerrilla warfare doesn't mean they're chimpanzees. Come on.
But it is funny that you're talking about these guys that there's like this war with them, right? The ones who are talking about the origin of life and how they try to come up with how the fuck did life start. But that's why it always comes back to the heliocentric model, because they always go back to the Big Bang, to that singularity, right? So they have to go back to that. And then the dudes like Lennox, they're just saying, well, I mean, there's obviously information. And like you say, Brian, a lot of them sound like Dewey with the information.
But being cannot come from non-being. We're human beings. We came from a being, not a human being.
They literally think it's just some chemicals that came together and somehow these chemicals came up with not only life but consciousness.
I
Because some
can't even
chemicals.
comment on such
We're
absurdity.
human beings. We've been planted.
That's a seed for thought.
Where do you
Yeah,
think
man,
the air castles
there's
are
some
coming
soup,
from?
man.
Just because you
And I was listening to the story, like they've got the story with the freaking primordial soup, and it gets hit by lightning.
primordial soup. That should be at the restaurant nearby. You want some
Yo,
primordial soup?
It's crazy. They really think like it was just some soup in a pond, and lightning strikes, and all of a sudden a cell.
Where did the lightning come from, and where did the soup come from? Give me a
I don't know.
It's a special
man.
restaurant. They have primordial soup and special dinosaur steaks. No,
And if you bring your kids, they got a sprout menu.
I'd like to order a primordial soup.
Would you like it at the beginning or at the end of your meal?
At the beginning? Isn't it where, like, you need a primordial soup to create life to have dinner? So it's got to be an aperitif, of course.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Anything but God.
Well, did you see the video I posted after that one? It was a music video from a guy called Russell Morris from the 60s.
No.
Well, the song is Come and See the Real Thing, right? And I was hoping somebody would catch on to it, but nobody did.
Well, I saw you put a note to Divergent that he got it.
No, that was Modern Science.
That was different.
That like on the video, the video with your man Lennox, it's like Darwin debunked using modern science. What the hell is modern science, right? What does old science? I don't get that, right? So that's basically shows that somebody doesn't understand things. Sorry, Alvin?
It's the newer, updated method.
Well,
yeah.
I think he's referencing.
It's the new thing where there are science. Sorry, man. Go ahead.
No, I finished. Go on, Chocolate. I finished the rest in a minute.
Yeah, because the old school heads like Dawkins and all them, right? They want to say it's not scientific to think that there is a God, right? They're trying to separate it. So they're saying you can't be a scientist and actually believe that there is some sort of a creator. Where people like Lennox, they're trying to tell them it's like, no, that's not what it's saying. You could use science, I believe you could in the scientific method, but there's obviously somewhere where this information we're dealing with came from. And like Dawkins, I've been listening to him a little bit lately. Like he's off the chain, man. Like these atheists, I don't know where they come from with this idea that it's just a mindless, senseless process that creates everything and can create consciousness and all this complicated life that we have here on Earth. Like it's really insane.
Chocolate, the Bible says, hold on. The Bible says the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. That's what he is.
No, Dawkins said in that Ben Stein movie, okay, at the very least, if we were created, it has to be aliens, not God. He's willing to go that far, but he's not willing to go to God because he's got a sin problem. All right.
And people have called him out on that, saying, well, wouldn't that be some sort of an infinite regress? Because we're talking about life. So if the aliens you're talking about are life, where did the aliens come from?
Well,
right?
as long as aliens are producing aliens and it's not God, and aliens become our God, and it's not a God that judges, he's okay with that.
You know, he said he regretted saying that in another interview afterwards. He said he kind of regretted saying that.
Yeah, because it's stupid.
Yeah.
My wife told me on TikTok, everybody's got these sightings of aliens all over the world. So they're prepping us. They're getting ready.
That's it. That's what they want.
Can can I finish the point I was making a few minutes ago? 'Cause I
Of
never got
course
to finish
not. You made it 2 weeks ago. We're just going to hear it again.
I posted the video, the music video, and I posted it again just underneath that video. I posted both those videos in Master B. Now, I don't want Nathan to play the music video because he gets struck. But the music video is called The Real Thing. If you listen to it, you will know the song, right? It's a famous song. The reason I posted it is because these people, so I'm feeding back on someone there, these people are touching on something, but they're not really touching on it. What they're touching on has been spoken about, God knows how long ago, by QE, and we're all speaking about it, and we don't believe in any heliocentric model or any of that nonsense. So I posted that video because it starts off with the words, come and see the real thing. That is us. Or at least it should be. We are the real thing. Right? If you want to experience the real thing, don't mess around with this nonsense that these guys are going to go on about, because there won't be long they'll be telling you about moon missions as well.
Hang on, Brian. I was programmed since child that the real thing is Coca-Cola.
But they got real cartoons. The cartoons are real.
Just privately listen to the song yourself. It's only a few minutes. You'll know it.
Can I
Good
suggest
song.
something? If you're going to post a YouTube video or any video, please put a heading on it, because I just went to, if you got 2 links, it's like, I never know what I'm watching. And if the title is alluring enough, I watch it.
I did last night. I posted
No, I mean
a link
now.
to each one.
No,
Okay.
it's just a link, but you don't put a description.
I did last night, but I wasted me time.
Well, like I said, 2 weeks ago
Nobody
doesn't
listened
count.
to it.
2 weeks ago doesn't count, Brian.
Is Nathan back by any chance?
He's always back. He's just listening.
Right. Well, I don't want him to play the Russell Morris, the real thing video, but the other one I
How
did.
would he know? How would he know? You don't have it labeled.
Because I'm going to say it to him.
I can hear you.
Yeah, the video above that, Darwin, it's only a 12-minute video. Darwin debunked using modern science. Now, I don't know. Do you know what modern science is? I don't know what that is. But it's a good video.
The new hotness science.
No, they're talking about the discovery of the cell and DNA. That's what they're referring to.
Oh, quantum gravity.
But they are.
Quantum gravity.
No, hang on. Leave me. I'm trying to tell Nathan something. That video is good because it speaks about stuff and it even brings information into it that is spoken about here, mainly by QE and Adam and that up to a point, but we are all aware of it. But there's a narrator there that has to bring in BS into it, into the whole thing. And they just talk about, well, it's good because they talk about Darwin and his failings and how he admitted that basically Darwin himself put forward that if someone could show this, then his whole theory goes out the window. So if you would be interested in putting it on and reviewing it now, it would be a good thing to do. If not, then that's the end of that.
I would like to say something. Somebody was talking about primordial. I wanted to interject, but I was letting y'all go. And Chocolate, Eli, if you there, you might have heard this. Maybe not Chocolate, but he didn't even know about what we was talking about before with the so-called, narrative. But okay, well, I'm trying to give a premise prep you guys, but there's so many narratives out there about creation, and some of them are anti-God, like atheists, but then some of them are not atheists, but they are inconclusive, because then they do kind of make it atheist by saying that the primordial was an asexual indigenous woman that was created by the creator, and asexually would reproduce, and we are the XY. And our mission was to protect the queen, which was her, and then later on became the X and the XY procreation encounter of sexual intercourse and male on female. But in the very beginning, it was an indigenous woman that was that's why you
the true mother of nature, the black woman.
Yeah, there you go. And you heard old Dirty Bastard, rest in peace, say the black woman is gone. Things like people believe that in the 3-dimensional realm, which is the only gateway from wherever there is else to this plane, this third dimension is through the woman. So that's what it relates to, that misogynistic patriarch ribbed from Adam thing is a false narrative. And the narrative is that the closest to, even the nurturing of a child, even in the compassion of a woman, everything that, even the movie Dogma with Chris Rock and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, they represented the creator as a more matriarch, feminine side because of the forgiveness, the love, the sensitivity. And we are the soldiers, the warriors,
Okay.
the practical things. You dig what I'm saying?
How is any of this?
Hello? Can you not hear?
At all?
Hello? D Rose was talking about Alanis
I
Morissette.
put all that in together.
Can you let him finish his spiel about Alanis Morissette? Go ahead.
It's long-winded, though.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You saw it. Alison Morissette was, at the ending. Nobody thought that, but they did that. That was kind of a message that relates to that matriarch aspect of the creator. Or some people think it's dual polarity. They think being that it's not a physical and the creator is all, that there's a feminine and a male aspect of it, and that we represent all this. So there's a whole bunch of narratives that go to it. That is not.
Alanis Morissette was she played God in Dogma, was it?
Yes.
Right. Symbolically, it was a punch in the face that God is not Morgan Freeman. Get it? You understand? Do you understand what I'm saying? What's wrong? Yes. So basically, why disrespect the women, or why disrespect that ideology with the patriarch misogynistic thought? Why are all the women the screw ups, except for maybe Mary? You dig what I'm saying? So there's a lot of things that go into this whole theological ideology stuff, and why can't Alison Morissette, some people, why can't the creator be more on the feminine side? I mean,
because the creator is a spirit, neither male or female. But whoever thought Morgan Freeman was God?
No, it's because
let me just
clear this up.
In Bruce Almighty,
let me just clear this up. The part of Alanis Morissette in Dogma was played by Morgan Freeman.
No, you get what I'm saying. I'm talking about, we're going to talk about theatrical things and way people tell stories and narratives. You got to look at both sides of it. But like you said, Tim, I like that aspect.
Hollywood narrative.
There should not be no gender. There should not be no gender bias, but evidently there is, and has always been getting away with it for the longest. Everybody that's played God has been males. Every aspect of God has been male. But Tim just clarified it. The Most High Creator is not a male or female; it's a spirit. You dig what I'm saying? So there should not be no gender bias.
Well,
but apparently,
just let me just clear something else up. Sorry, just for the audience's benefit, some of them might not get it. That was a joke. It wasn't actually Morgan Freeman playing Alanis Morissette. It was actually Will Smith.
Got it.
Of course.
If you're going to see D-Rose, if you're going to go see movies, G stands for grounded. PG is plain guidance. Okay. R is radial, and X and double X, don't go see those.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible.
But even the voices, Moses.
It also says the Lord God. It also says the Lord God.
What are we talking?
We're gonna listen to a bit of this. I'm glad you've interrupted.
And do the opposite. Like who?
Can we please move on from this?
Loud
noises. We're gonna listen to a bit of this. So this is hello. We're gonna listen to a bit of this. It's Russell Morris that Brian posted.
Oh, not that. Don't put not that one. The one above it. That's an actual song. You get a strike for that. The one above it, Nathan. That is the thing to listen to. Not the Russell Morris one. They are the Darwin one.
Don't worry. He verbally told you. He should have labeled it though.
Have the time to have a particularly healthy breakfast or a particularly healthy lunch. And I've been using Huel regularly ever since because it's 400 calories. They've got tons and tons of different flavors.
This is top-down causation.
If you go that way, then you have left Darwin far behind.
Yes, but they are doing that. They're leaving it far behind.
But top-down is actually a metaphor for the action.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what that guy's saying. Can you translate some of this for me, Brian?
Of an agent.
I prefer an explanation that makes sense to one that doesn't make sense.
Welcome back, my Christian friends. Welcome back, my atheist friends, and welcome back, everyone in between. The topic of
right, is that it? It's just in between those two things, right?
No, but it's a 12-minute video. That was just what he showed there was a section of what's in the video, kind of like as a highlighter. He's a YouTuber. So he showed a highlighter, then he did his intro, and now it's going to go back into if you
we all
skip
got
all
that.
then
I was
people
joking.
are going to lose the context.
I don't need you to explain how a little buffer at the beginning works. I was just joking. I was being racist. The guy was Irish.
Yeah, but he's from Northern Ireland, so his name is Lennox.
That's
so
why
I was going to get to that later. The fact that he's not even the same Irish as you was going to be something else we were going to cover, but you've already.
He might be Scots-Irish or something. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what his background is. But he's a university guy or whatever.
We'll find out his name. You probably know him.
This conversation
Lennox
is around the
is his surname.
You see, they know everyone over there. You see, I knew you'd know him.
Complexity of the cell.
Exactly.
Also features a
What do you
very
got-
interesting quote by Charles Darwin. That being said, let's dive in. Let's do it.
Darwin and folks in his day didn't know much about the cell.
Right.
They had crummy microscopes. It looked like a little piece of jelly. And they knew nothing about molecules. And we now know that light...
Tiny and elementary also meant simple to them. So
yes,
biologically
that's
simple.
correct. So like Jello or a jelly, they thought it...
So are these two guys like just having a little chit chat about this stuff, or are they opposing each other? What's the deal?
Well, there's a couple of them there talking, and they're all like PhD level or whatever. They all got degrees, and they're all well known in that field. What they're talking about is how Darwin is completely debunked, but people won't accept it.
Gotcha.
But Darwin himself, his own standard, said if that standard is shown to be wrong, someone can show this, then that means my whole claim goes out the window. But listening, because it's the narrator's add-ins that are the funniest parts.
from the sea. But modern science in the past 70 or so years has shown that the cell is run by molecular machines, real machines made of molecules, and really sophisticated ones. There are...
Really?
No, well, yes and no. Showing stuff under really, really good microscopes of how things actually function, that's not science. It's just showing stuff. I mean, yeah, I'll buy that, right? You can show how that, I don't know, protein functions for the sake of argument and describe it as a little machine. Okay. But that's not science. It's just looking at stuff.
Right. They're known as von Neumann machines because Dr. von Neumann first labeled it that way. The Behe wrote a book called Darwin's Black Box. The other younger guy is Stephen something. I can't remember, but I got two of his books. And he's a creationist. And then Lennox is stacked in between those two. And then there's the interviewer. And then there's the guy in the little pop-up window that's pretty funny when he brings in heliocentrism later.
Well,
Right.
what is modern?
I wanted to also mention that this entire premise, little machines running everything, it's not true. You see, like if it's detached from the spirit, those little machines don't work. It only works when the spirit is there to, say, activate those machines. You know, if you're not alive, a clump of flesh could be kept alive. It's not going to function.
Nobody was disputing that. We're talking about.
Body.
I appreciate that. You're saying these are functionalities of living organisms, and at the microscopic or submicroscopic level, whatever they're going to describe it as, you can't detach that from the overall living being that must be functional for that function to take place. No one's disputing that, though, are we? I don't know why you dropped that in.
Well, because that is something that to suggest them.
Wait.
Hold on, Brian. I want to hear Aaron's response.
Freaking actually have the conversation instead of three
Go ahead,
other
Darwin.
people. Yeah, because a lot of these biologists that are atheists are still mechanistic. So they are trying to find the little machine that do it all, and they still see the spirit and the consciousness as just as a side effect and not as an actual driver.
I see. So you're at this early stage, you're reconnecting the two together, where later they may be separated out so that the mechanistic function that's being observed can be described as a higher entity that controls us rather than it just being part of us and our mechanisms. I see. So you zipping them up now before they get unzipped later, correct?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
But I wanted to go back to what Nathan said.
Hold on, Brian, then D. Go ahead, Brian.
That man Lennox, the guy from Northern Ireland, he is a devout Christian. He is promoting a creator, and the rest of them are in agreement. This is the thing. They're promoting a creator. That's why I put up a video of this man talking in, what's that famous university in London? Cambridge. It's Cambridge. Sorry, Cambridge. Cambridge, where he's promoting a creator via biology. But sorry, QE bet you to that a long time ago, buddy. Like, he's miles behind QE, I put it that way.
And Oven was there, like in the 90s still already.
Yeah.
So.
But the point is, but the point I'm trying to show with this video is they're hitting on something. And I'm not saying this man only came to that conclusion last week, but they're hitting on something that we here have known about for eons. You know what I mean? These people, no matter what they have or what they know, they're still miles behind us.
Fair enough. Go ahead, dude.
Yeah.
They want to scientifically discover God. Yeah, just wanted to say that one.
Just 1 second. Go ahead, D.
Oh, God. What's your name, D? D.
No need, D. Hello, I'll do that.
You
Thank
have
you.
15 minutes.
Right now, I've got to take charge of D. No, D, I'll do that. Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey, so back to what Nathan said. So what these guys did, like you said, it's not science. Just because you observe two wallabies doing the nasty don't mean it's science. It's just a natural phenomenon you're observing. So there they go again. They're always saying the science behind this, and this is science, this proves science, yada, 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 based on just observing something through an electron microscope. I mean, that's not the science. So now you can understand why the population thinks that science is so vague and broad.
It's loosely used as knowledge. That's what Adam had made a distinction. The department, science departments. It's not talking about scientific method there.
Okay, go ahead, Arwin.
Well,
hold on, Brian. Hold on. Go ahead, Arwin.
Already said what I wanted to say.
What? Through? Oh, okay.
I don't know if you heard it. Yeah. I've already forgot, so.
I thought that might be the case. Just, at least you're honest. I knew that was.
Important, though. It's just the moment's coming on.
I appreciate you had something in the moment to say. Now you've lost it. I get it. I'm sorry. My bad. I stopped you. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I just want to say this video was prefaced by the narrator, by the video, but as modern science. Now, I don't know what the hell that is.
Modern?
But modern, yeah.
Oh, meaning claims of proof when none is actually viable. I mean, in this instance, I think the overarching claim of science will be applied to things that are benign. In this instance, it doesn't alter the claim that's being made. He's not claiming that he's proving something. Now, his description might be the reason he's used the word science, because it's mechanistic, as Arwin's pointed out. Now, we're yet to see that, but if that is the case, he's just greasing the skids for a later claim that will be detached from the actual observation. Therefore, it's useful at this early stage to drop in the word science. But how the case is that these people just have it as their vernacular whenever they're talking about something with any authority. Well, the science of my changing a head gasket. Why? Because I know how to do it and the car worked afterwards. Science. You know, it's just lending your authority as a mechanic, where this guy's going to do it with, well, whatever he's going to cover. I don't want to put words in his mouth because we haven't heard it yet. Any other people who want to get in, because we've had this up for a while? Right?
Machines that act as propellers, machines that act as trucks to bring supplies from one side of the cell to the other side of the cell.
So when you magnify, these days we know enough about cells to know that they're not little blobs of jello.
That's right.
You get inside a cell and you're looking at a city.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's right. It's got electrical apparatus, it's got vehicles, it's got information, it's got all sorts of things. And
okay, no objection so far, Brian. I've got to be honest. I mean, maybe he'll reify this later. I mean, it's just describing what they've seen, right?
The problem with
I was just going to say that the main argument with this is where they're going is they all recognize the complexity of things like cells. But the main issue is, where did that complexity come from? Did it just come from random chemical reactions, or did it actually, like the information the guy just pointed out, did that actually come from an informer?
Well, that's because it's a language.
It's organized or not, right? That's the question.
If you play enough of it, you realize it's a language, it's linguistics. He says it himself. Just play.
Okay. I mean, we might as well, not rather than bury the headline, we're going to be getting into functional sequence specified complexity any moment, aren't we, in terms of that question if it comes up. Now, you're saying that one of the people is the Northern Irish guys, the devout Christian on the panel. Presumably the other two, I don't know, does their position...
The other guy wrote Darwin's Black Box, Behe, the one to the right of the Northern. And then the younger guy, Stephen something, he is a creationist and a believer. He claims to be. So they're all Christians, basically, or believe in the Creator. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
Reducible complexity is, if you think about it, machines are made of different parts. Say a lawnmower, it's got a blade, it's got a motor, wheels, stuff like that. But Darwin always insisted that his theory had to work by numerous successive slight modifications. It had to be very, very gradual. But if you try to build a machine like a lawnmower or a mousetrap,
I like the mousetrap because that's so simple, even I can get it in my head.
Yeah, just think of a mechanical mousetrap. It's got a number of different pieces. Now, if you wanted to build something like that slowly and have each part or each intermediate work.
I can now see why you're saying we're so ahead of the curve in this regard, right, Brian? So Quantum Eraser would be making examples of the mousetrap washing up on a beach. Yeah? Functionally perfect in every way, just washes up on a beach. Now, he uses the example with a nice complicated sandcastle, so it's easier to digest because beaches, obviously, sandcastles are connected. But it's no different. If you drop in the example, it is akin to you just standing around on a beach and watching the natural course of time result in a mousetrap washing up. Not one that's already been created by a guy, it just being fabricated out of the ocean.
I think this is a slightly different nuance that the guy's doing. When we're looking at the sandcastle, we're marveling at it washing up. What he's holding to account there is Darwin saying that if we just take the mousetrap, then the mousetrap could just wash up in of itself. But what they're describing here is the expectation that, first of all, the base of the mousetrap is formed, and it actually has a purpose. It has a real purpose to mean that organism will keep the base and continue moving forwards with the base. Then it produces the spring. And the spring has a completely different use, but it is still useful to the organism. And then you get the bit of cheese. And the cheese is useful. All these three things are still proving useful, otherwise they wouldn't have continued in an evolutionary sense. And then it's when you've got all three that you then have a mousetrap. And this is the point. You can't have the base, the spring, and the cheese having a purpose for the organism unless you've got base, spring, and cheese.
Sure. So in their examples, by direct comparison, in terms of their descriptions of evolution, they have a cell, and the starting point for their story for the development of an eyeball is to say that the cell is functioning quite happily in the darkness, absorbing nutrients and doing its thing. But then it appreciates that there's a functional advantage to be gained by the differential in light that it doesn't know about. Therefore, it develops its own eyeball that is a receptor for light, and therefore it can function at a different level and get more food, right? So therefore, your base example, they start with something that is functionally incredibly complex and then have it develop through pure fiat. I don't know what. Just the eyeball just comes.
Chemical reactions.
Yeah, just why not? It's just going to get an advantage, so it develops an eyeball.
Wouldn't it start logically with like a magnetic sense or something more rudimentary?
That's not my point. My point and Adam's point is... Hold on. Adam's point is that you're starting with something functionally complex, and it is a dumbed-down example. The base of this mousetrap must be purposeful in terms of its existence to have developed itself into existence to later develop a spring on top of itself. Well, that's Adam's example, right, Adam?
Yeah. But it has to have a role, not as a mousetrap, but maybe as a foot or something. This mutation has to have a role for the organism there and then, for the organism to favour it moving forward. Now, the base of the mousetrap doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be catching mice with it. At the moment, it could have a completely different use. And this is where it becomes ridiculous to the point of probability that you're then going to then have a secondary spring that's got nothing to do with mousetraps built on top, and it has a purpose. And then when these things merge together, you've got a mousetrap that it was never intended to be, because you've got the two separate things now combined to give the evolutionary advantage of walking around with a mousetrap. It's an impossibility mathematically.
Right, like the bacterial conjunction idea of that the mitochondria at one point kind of were assimilated and then became part of the cells. That idea.
Well, that's just made up shit.
You've got a big problem because it needs all of the parts to work. It needs a spring, a wooden base, a couple other metal parts. And just to capture that concept, I invented the phrase irreducible complexity because it's complex.
Yeah, right. This is covered by QE.
Can't reduce it, or
Take
else
away one piece and it just doesn't work.
And the mousetrap doesn't work.
Right.
Yeah.
Therefore, it could not, the mousetrap. Take away one piece from one of these fantastically complicated machines in a cell,
right.
It doesn't function, and therefore could not have conferred an adaptive advantage.
Right, and it couldn't.
Does the guy responding to this ever say anything?
Not be built gradually and improving each step of the way.
Intermediate stages confer no functional advantage. Therefore, there's nothing for natural selection to select on the way from the simple to the complex.
There was a time when the scientific community believed
Here we go.
that the Earth was the center of the universe under the...
Right, the scientific community. No. There's no such animal. Yeah, just a group of men once thought.
Ptolemaic model. This is a great thing to...
It's got a name. So Ptolemy thought.
Nathan, look at it like this. They were just people, and then they evolved into a scientific community.
It's like saying the scientific consensus was that the Arwinian model was correct. No. Arwin said that the Arwinian... Ptolemy... what the hell is wrong with these people? Listen to the words coming out your own mouth. Huh?
And then it evolved into science because it was more advantageous to call it scientific.
That's not what he said, but anyway.
Bear in mind when we think about Darwin and we think about the cell. Darwin didn't have the tools that he needed at the time to be
to make his bullshit more believable.
Able to look rightly at the cell in the same way that Ptolemy didn't have what he needed to be able...
No. Contrasting how wrong both people are doesn't make either of them right. So because he didn't have enough information for how wrong it'd be shown to be, it's just comparable to how wrong Ptolemy was. No. Definitely just both wrong on multiple levels. That's it.
Ptolemy wasn't wrong. That's the point. Listen on.
All right, okay. Well,
able to understand that the Earth was not the center of the solar system, that not everything revolves around us, but actually...
Center of the solar system? A contradiction in terms. Am I wrong?
Yeah, but so listen, you have to, because you're breaking it up instead of hearing everything he's saying.
I think we'll change what you just said.
The time to respond is in a minute.
He's just wrong. He's just he's parroting off some wiki entry that he's read prior to making this video, right? And in so doing, the way he's paraphrased the stuff he's regurgitating was to compound it into a contradiction in terms. So I can rewind it if you want me to. But what he actually said was that Earth would be at the center of the, what did he say, the solar system. Right.
Yeah,
well,
he should have said universe.
Yeah, but he didn't. He said solar system, though, didn't he?
Yeah, he did, because he's an idiot, and you'll hear why in a second.
That's my point. He doesn't understand what he's saying. Therefore, when I conceptually say solar system or heliocentric system, to give it its more grandiose term, I know that by definition, means what? The sun at the center. Doesn't it? So to say that Ptolemy thought Earth was at the center of the solar system, what, he thought Earth was at the center of the sun-based centric system? No, he didn't. You're just a clown and haven't understood the garbage that you're parroting off from Wiki to make yourself seem intellectual whilst covering people who have actually got brains where this guy in a hat hasn't. Am I wrong?
No, that's correct.
No.
So why is he reacting
wrong.
to this? Why is this bonehead?
I'll tell you why. Yes, so I'll tell you.
Okay.
See, the deception is that when Copernicus and everybody else after him changed from geocentrism to heliocentrism, it's because they discovered things through science. Okay, he's contrasting that lie to the signature of the cell, which is Stephen Meyer, the young guy, just posted everything in Master B, and Behe, who wrote Darwin's Black Box. These guys are saying, look, Darwin, they're going to show a quote from Darwin saying, if any one of my things is wrong, this whole thing falls apart. And they're going to show them that through modern science, which is the electron microscope that he didn't have at the time to see what a cell actually was, which is linguistics, language, a code, okay, that this whole thing would have fallen apart then. So this narrator who's running the show, the one we just heard, he's saying, well, you see, this is why we're in the solar system and we go around the sun is because of the telescope and modern science. And so modern science now shows Darwin is wrong. So he's completely confused about the lie that something in the sky doesn't prove what you're doing on Earth, flat or round. I mean, that's so bad.
Yeah. He's contrasting the fact that they are now showing for definite biologically how Darwin was completely wrong with how people were wrong before when they thought we were the center of the universe when really we're just a planet orbiting in a solar system within a massive heliocentric universe. This is where the guy is. He thinks that he's onto something by saying that.
Exactly.
Okay.
Actually, we're revolving around the sun. Let's continue.
Michael, does that, what interests me greatly about that is the gradual building up is a stepwise ascent. Whereas, am I right in saying that contemporary biologists like Dennis Noble, whom I mentioned, are saying, but look, you have to take the whole cell into consideration, that this is top-down causation, and that would frustrate any concept of building things up anyway by numerous.
Yeah, I didn't understand. Can you translate all that for me, Brian?
I
was waiting for it.
I got it. He's saying that the Noble, the doctor he quoted, it's top-down causation, not bottom-up, meaning there's an intellect, there's a being involved. That's what he's trying to say.
Slight accretion. Is that fair to say that?
If you go that way, then you have left Darwin far behind.
Yes.
And you've left randomness far behind.
But they are doing that. They're leaving it far behind.
But top-down is actually a metaphor for the action of an agent in
Yes.
arranging things with a plan in mind.
Dangerous
Yes,
stuff.
right.
You see,
Is he going to get agreed with? Will they agree with him here?
John Lennox just swats Darwin aside. For the two of you, it's a much more agonizing process. You try very hard to be fair to the man. Two quotations, Michael, two quotations.
Well, hold on. It has, hold on. It has been squatted to one side, but what he said afterwards when he talked about what top-down actually means was far more profound. Why didn't they focus on that? So what you actually mean is there's an external influencer that must have created this stuff. That's paraphrasing what that guy just said. I'm going to rewind that. Listen to what he says and what the guy then focuses on.
They do when they say agent. When they say agent, they're referring to a creator.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But the guy on the right now, the middle-aged guy with white hair, instead of focusing on the quite frankly most profound statement that's been said so far in this 4 minutes we've been watching, focuses on how Darwin's being battered away. Who gives a crap? It's shown to be wrong, yeah. So what, are you going to focus on how easily it is we can show how wrong it is and how we should... Why?
Far behind.
But they are doing that. They're leaving it far behind.
But top-down is actually a metaphor for the action of an agent in
Yes.
arranging things with a plan in mind.
Dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? That's the profound statement he makes. If no one's picking up on why that is profound...
Well, the
then...
guy said most dangerous right after that.
Yeah.
That's right.
You see, John Lennox just swats Darwin aside. For the two of you, it's a much more agonizing process. You try very hard to be fair to the man. Two quotations.
What the hell? Let's focus on you two and how agonizing it is for you to relinquish the notions of Darwin. No. Me, I'd be focusing on, what's that you say? External entity must be creating this stuff to be in existence? That would be the thing I'd be focusing on. But like you say, Brian, we're way ahead of the curve in this
No,
regard.
this is.
Yeah, but you gotta understand,
don't
like
miss it.
that's.
Hang on. Don't miss
Go ahead,
this,
Tom.
please. That both Stephen Meyer, the young guy who said the top down, and Behe, the one to the far right from Lennox in the middle, these are all know Darwin is wrong. They all written books about it. The point is, when you're in the university system and your colleagues are Darwinists, this is what he's referencing. You guys are being kind to Darwin. But all of them, if you just look at Master B, I posted books where they trash Darwin. So they're trashing Darwin, but they're trying to do it in a nice way.
Okay.
Yeah, because Darwin is still the accepted theory of this evolution crap, right? So they're fighting against it. It sounds like the narrator's like fighting against it a little bit, but it doesn't sound like a debate, really. It just sounds like a discussion with these guys. Because I know Stephen Meyer.
They're trying to do it in a formatted or fashion, where they're trying to show Darwin, and you'll hear it in a minute. Darwin himself agrees, right? But if the stuff I put in, that Nathan nearly played, when this video is over, personally listen to that song, and you'll understand. That's why I called it the present day FED anthem, because we are ahead of them. We're ahead of all of them.
Behe wrote his book in 1996, Darwin's Black Box. These guys have been around for a while. Cooey knows about these guys. This whole DNA's been around for a while. And so it's gradually making up its way to this point in our modern day, where on this panel, you don't even have a debate because they all agree Darwin was wrong.
I just want to acknowledge what Brian said. So I acknowledge what you say, Brian. We are definitely ahead of everybody in this regard. And you, specifically, are 2 weeks ahead of all of us. So...
yeah,
I'm moving to Ireland.
Aside, the point I'm making is not biologically. I can't speak from a biologist's point of view that I know more about that than Lennox or whatever, right? The point I'm making is that overall, we are way ahead of the curve. Right? Pun intended, if you want. Because these guys all still believe in heliocentrism. That's a massive baseball bat they have yet to get hit with.
It's Michael, two quotations. Charles Darwin in The Origin. If Darwin himself writes this, if it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed, which could not possibly have been formed by numerous, successive, slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. Close quote. That's Darwin. He puts the test right there.
Yeah, that's it. Game over. With his own lips.
Thanks, Darwin.
Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, but at this point you go, yeah, so he was completely wrong. And he knew how wrong he could be, and he even prefaced how wrong he might be, because he was obviously not stupid. Okay, moving on. Darwin was wrong.
Oh, that's bad. That's evil. You can't think that life came from an intelligent agent, because in the mainstream narrative, that's still bad, very, very bad. Stay away.
But you haven't got any
people like
alternative. It's one of the ontological primitives. Once you've eradicated the idea that, as Darwin has just summarized in his own words about his own theory, how wrong it could be based on the premise that something that has functional sequence specified complexity cannot have existed before something else created it. There's no way his evolution theory works if there's something with that complexity to begin with. If it kind of, as Adam described with the mousetrap, if it can't have a path to grow into its spring and mechanism, then Darwin's theory, in quotes, which it isn't, fails. Darwin knew it. Now they know it. But at this point for us, okay. So Darwin was wrong, moving on. But no, well, let's focus on how easily this can be brushed. No, let's just move on. Who cares?
Anything but God.
But then you're left with the question, aren't you? I've got a point to that ramble was the point. You get to the point where you go, okay, at that stage, moving on, Darwin was wrong. Where are you at? In what's the word? Philosophical terms. You're at the ontological primitives, aren't you? That's where you end up at this point, if you're going to ask the more broad question. Okay, well, Darwin's ideas come from the notions of nature creating a complex life through a process of change. Right? Okay, we all understand Darwin. once you show that that cannot possibly be the case by way of what Darwin himself just explained, if there is something with what QE appropriately describes as functional sequence specified complexity, that debunks the entire notion of nature creating us. What are you left with? An external entity created us. That's where the discussion not can or might or perhaps should or shouldn't must go from this point. That's the only place it can go.
And that's why it's so bad that people like highly regarded quote unquote scientists like Richard Dawkins will literally say, or would rather say, life came from aliens outside of Earth. They'd rather say that than there was an intelligent creator. That's how bad it is to say in the mainstream that there's an intelligent creator.
Hey, and can we all agree among all pseudoscientists and the pseudoscience community, Darwin was, or it still is, the puppet master monkey man? I mean,
no,
he's the ape king. He's the ape king. You know.
Okay, yeah, it might be the ape king in terms of what is described as his quote unquote theory, which it isn't. But you listen to what Darwin himself does. It not remind you of stuff that Newton said? Does this not ring of Newton?
Yep.
I'm only hearing one from chocolate.
That was why I wanted you to play it.
No, I agree.
Because I heard things like this. 1 second, D. Because I heard stuff like this in the past where they're hanging everything, all their hats on Darwin, when Darwin himself said, well, you could debunk this by showing this thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Half the time when people postulate this stuff, it's like Darwin, if he's not careful, will eventually cross that line and something heliocentric will get ascribed to him. You know, while he's saying, well, you know, notwithstanding the begging the question and all these presuppositions and the heliocentric model, if I was to describe it in an Darwinian motion with X, Y, and Z, but it's so absurd because obviously we know we're not in a sky vacuum, and he gives all the disclaimers. We just get rid of all the disclaimers and only focus on the gravity that to Newton was such an absurd notion, or however he phrased it in a much more eloquent manner than I. However, in this instance, you've got Darwin doing the same thing. Anyway.
In 1859, here's Michael Behe. The question then becomes, are there irreducibly complex systems in the cell? Yes, there are many.
Let me just very briefly say that this is an extremely dramatic point. In other words, if Darwin himself were alive today, he would refute his own theory precisely at this point because the cell does possess this idea of irreducible complexity.
He's having to read this. Okay, fine.
That Darwin said, if it does, then that means that his theory cannot play itself out in this way. Wild and very significant. Let's continue.
Yeah, but what does it mean? Significant because what? Because you're left with the only alternative that there's an external entity creating everything we know. But he hasn't picked up on the profound nature. Again, because this guy, the guy on screen now, the middle-aged guy with the white hair, he immediately took it to how easily we're discounting Darwin. And this guy's just focused on that. So, all right, so look how quickly we're discounting the Darwinian aspects by Darwin's own tongue. No, that should be a mere footnote, a mere aside in the real transitional point, the real profound nature of, okay, what are we left with then? So we're left with the only option being an external entity creating us. No, doesn't even get a mention.
An objection.
Notwithstanding that point, in the end game for fairy tale evolution and atheism, he said theory a couple times. What theory might that
waiting for it. I was waiting.
Yeah, I kept putting quotation marks around it when he said the word theory, which it's not. And I did put it into my preamble or whatever the words is. My disclaimers were there. No, it's not a theory. No, it's not based on science. Just another hijacking of the terminology to make Darwin's quote-unquote theory, which it's not, sound more like it's proven when it isn't. This guy's making his apologetics. The whole of the discussion is about how easily they're relinquishing the ideas rather than what they're going to move on to. That's not allowed, is it? They'd rather declare aliens. And what do you know? 2023, here we are. We've got aliens. We live in a bonkers world.
Objection runs
It's one of those situations, isn't it? That someone's gone, like, who is it? Dawkins. Well, if push comes to shove, rather than moving on to the ontological primitives and what we actually now have to face, the uncomfortable truth of an external force creating us, I'd rather declare aliens. Fast forward, 20, 30 years. Well, if that's the only option, I'll just roll out the aliens then. It's like, rather than it being like an absurd thing you'd apologise for 25, 30 years ago, now it's like, well, let's roll that out as an option. Let's use Plan Z. Roll out the aliens.
Well, they're rolling out the aliens, but he's going back and saying, I'm mad that I even said that.
That's what I'm saying. 25 years ago, it's an apologetic for, yeah, that was a stupid idea. Now they're like, no, but if there were actually aliens,
we're already on it.
Yeah, we're all over this. Plan Z in effect.
To see how you evolve a mousetrap, beginning with a little wooden platform. And true, it can't work until all the pieces are in place.
In case you listen to this, he's just put a friendly reminder on his screen, which is fair play, right? He said, make sure you subscribe. Well, yeah, Daily Dose of Wisdom is the name of this YouTuber. Because this is on the after show, I'm not going to be able to put it in the live stream, obviously. But yeah, check him out. Darwin Debunked Using Modern Science, open brackets, 12 minutes of density. Okay, close brackets. That's the name of the video, and it's by YouTube videographer Daily Dose of Wisdom. So check him out. Let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. Hopefully in the premiering stream, someone will stick it in the live stream chat, and you can then go and let him know at Nathan Oakley 1980 sent me. With, as is always disclaimed, the selfish notion that they might actually put our link and give us some YouTube algorithmic love where we receive none, were it to respond.
On the other hand, suppose you do evolve it in 2 or 3 pieces and they sit around for centuries. They don't confer any advantage on the organism, but they don't harm it either. So they're these strange accretions on which natural selection is neutral. It doesn't select for them, but it doesn't select against them. And then after eons and eons...
So what's he saying? Nothing's evolving?
Yeah. Natural selection.
Nothing's being selected.
That's sort of a reification fallacy because you're giving choice constraints to nature. Does nature make choices?
No.
Not really.
Eons, we worry about the maths later. After eons and eons, the final piece drops into place and suddenly it functions. Plausible?
No, that's ridiculous. I mean, realistically, would you...
He's being very careful of Darwin, but he's swatting me aside.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, if you think, suppose you didn't have a mousetrap. So you say, well, what can I do? I'll just go into my garage and pick out a few pieces that would function as a mousetrap. And you say, well, I need a spring. Well, here's one in this grandfather clock I have. You wind up, I'll just use that. And I need a hammer.
Where's this going? What the hell is this all about?
Hammer to squash the mouse. I'll use this crowbar.
Right now, that if you're a species with half a mousetrap hanging off of you, that you're at no disadvantage to the same species that doesn't have half a mousetrap hanging off you. You'll continue and be unaffected by natural selection with half a mousetrap hanging off you, and you'll live just as long as those with no half a mousetrap hanging off you until you develop the other half of the mousetrap randomly, and then you'll have an advantage over those with only half a mousetrap and no mousetrap. Bunkum. To pretend that you can run around having half a mousetrap hanging off you and still be the same advantage as somebody without that mutation is kind of the claim they're making. You can take it to natural selection a bit better and actual real organisms with like flagellum and things like this. And it's this bullshit that you can build half a machine, strap it to your back and not be disadvantaged until randomly you get the other half of the machine and then you're at an advantage.
The inference being that these mutations... Hold on, just one sec. The inference being that the mutation itself is going to either immediately or in a future date benefit the organism. That's the idea of what's just been described by Adam Farcical, though it may be, right? With half a mousetrap as the example. But mutation... Hold on. When has mutation ever resulted in something becoming better? When you describe mutation, isn't that something incorrect? I.e. something that's flawed In other words, it's only going to be a negative, a down slope when you have mutation.
Given
Mutation
enough
always-
time.
Hang on. Mutation is always a loss of information, never a gain.
There you go. That's a better summary. Would it not be the case that if you're always losing information rather than gaining it, there's never going to be a net benefit to a mutation as they're describing it? But because of what enough elapsed time, you're going to gain half a mousetrap, and then enough further elapsed time, you'll gain the other half of it, therefore benefiting you with a huge amount of time. Where mutation, which is a loss of information, results in something that ultimately results in your increase in functionality. It's absolutely absurd.
Yes, that's exactly what they're saying. Yes.
They pull that apart in a moment. That's where the guy is going with his off out to be shed example.
I see.
It's much worse than that.
Over here.
Yeah.
But the pieces aren't adjusted to each other. You can't just take random pieces and put them together.
Oh yeah, you can.
And natural selection, which, as Darwin said, is constantly scrutinizing life, would not be.
Does nature do that? Says nature. Look at these little mice. They need something a bit more advantageous. Maybe I'll grow them a little spring.
This is the trouble, though, isn't it? You can have these random events that form a spring or form a flagellum that's got a powerful motor to propel the cell. But I want to use the flagellum thing. So there you've got a little spinny tail and 6 complex polypeptides, which, when put together in a particular order, allow the tail to move, allowing motility in the cell. Right? I'll give you all of the randomness and probabilities of those lining them up. But who set the rules for the polypeptide order to mean the tail will work? Who set that information in place first, so that if you're going to accept randomness, how it randomly got there, lovely, but what makes it work? What are the rules that were in place prior to that randomness occurring?
No, there weren't any rules. They were all just happening, some of them failing, some of them succeeding, and then nature came around and started scrutinizing which ones were doing well and which ones weren't.
Yeah, throw a strong breeze here, a little earthquake over there.
Don't demean nature
And
like
Bob's
that.
your uncle.
How dare you? It was sitting around scrutinizing. Don't be absurd.
Get the information at.
That's what I'm saying. Where's the information come from that says it does this? This is pre-written. Yeah, all you're doing is hoping that somehow you'll randomly manifest through probability a set of instructions that have already been predefined. You're not making anything yourself. You're hoping through probability and luck to hit across a preordained set of information that will provide the flagellum or provide the mousetrap. It's already been programmed and written and described in the DNA. It's already in there what a flagellum looks like. Whether or not the creature gets it is a different matter. But the information has already been predetermined and is contained within the cell already.
And has been taken apart based on exactly that by Darwin himself before any of this was even looked at. So where are they going with this? I don't really follow. This tangent that they're taking us, is it apologetics? Where's it going?
In the shape that they would need to be for some future use. They would
need to be. That sounds like apologetics.
Only they would hone them for what they were doing right now.
Who's they and what are they honing?
Now.
All right. Can I weigh in?
Was that nature and its scrutiny honing things?
On this?
Sure, of
Because
course.
there's a connection between what Mike's talking about and the mathematical problems that John was alluding to. And that is that in these actual
Quick, take it to the conceptual.
systems, these nanomachines that Mike has made famous through his work, for example, the bacterial flagellar motor or the ATP synthase. One's a
This
rotary.
man has made the flagellar motor a rock star.
Well, he kind of has. He kind of has. But it's a 30-part rotary engine. The ATP synthase is a turbine with multiple parts. But the parts are made of proteins. And proteins are in essence, the toolbox.
Just a moment to reflect on the absolute majesty that we exist within, even in our own structures. Wow.
Of the cell that they
not even a raised eyebrow from these guys, but majesty of our own existence is something to dwell upon, if you ask me. But, you know, moving on.
They perform specifically.
There's a mathematical conceptual problem to get to. So moving on. Go on, whoever that was.
Well, I'm struggling again because they're trying to make this apologetic stage where something can exist with no purpose, having changed the organism from perfection to something that has now admittedly going to serve it in the future, not in this time, because it's whatever's been conveyed that's different is not an advantage right now. They're still trying to pretend that there's some intermediary thing. They're still trying to allow that excuse in. Yeah, and this, he said 30, I said 6, but we're talking about the same thing, that flagellum. Yeah, it's that movement and that complexity. If only half the turbine's built, what is that amoeba doing with half a turbine hanging out its arse? You're not telling me it's as good as the others. And it's this intermediary stage where they seem to pretend that you've had change with no benefit. No benefit can only mean negative, which means by their own set of rules, it should die out. It shouldn't hang around waiting for another possible change to allow it to be superior to itself and its predecessor.
That's when you send in the tornado.
I have a question.
It has to be advantageous in the intermediate stages.
I have a question.
Yeah, but that's fine, Arwin, isn't it? If that intermediary stage, half a turbine did something, then there is an advantage. But there isn't an advantage to having half a broken motor hanging out your arse.
Well, unless the females have an inherent attraction to this weird situation where half a motor is hanging out of your ass, though. You know?
No, these aren't. We're not talking about. These aren't reproducing cells. This is not their function. Arwen's descending this into absurdity, or he just doesn't understand what we're talking about.
We were talking about evolution, right?
I'm trying to get in something here, right? What they're doing is when we beg the question of a heliocentric model, only to completely destroy it afterwards. To show after we beg the question all that much, here is the thing that destroys all that, even if you do. That's
Okay.
what they're at.
D's causing feedback because he was waiting on next in queue to ask a question. Go ahead, D. What was your question?
I was before.
My question real quick was, because I walked away from I went to the store. But so basically with the Darwin, with this video, basically, and to round it off, they have unveiled something that Darwin said, like Newton said, that he wasn't standing on this as a claim.
Not exactly.
But just his perspective.
No, he's showing. No. What Darwin's essentially saying is that if you can show something that has no ability to exist before its actual function, then my entire theory, in quotes, which it's not, fails. Now, when you show something like these organisms that couldn't have pre-existed without the very specific job that they've got to do, then Darwin's theory fails. That's what Darwin has said. But he's showing the, like any good researcher, you'd say, well, if this is my postulation and idea, where my postulation and idea might fail is as follows. It's just being thorough, by the sound of things.
His version of a black swan.
Yeah, it's disclaiming his own version of a black swan before its existence, because he's smart and can preempt his own failure, or where his ideas might fall down. And they're going over how he's disclaimed that in advance of exactly that turning out to be the case. That's what's happening, D, just to summarise.
Okay, and whereas Darwinism followers and all the predators afterwards didn't take that in consideration and rather just made a claim that we definitely came from apes because Darwin said so.
Not exactly. The focus on this has come about because of the discoveries, because of bettering our ability to look at things in finer detail. That's all this is. But upon doing so, you go, oh, look at what we've found. These have, as QE would describe more accurately than I could ever give justification for the term, functional sequence specified complexity.
Yeah, D-Rose, it's not so much about the apes, it's more about the origin of life itself.
Right.
Like the first cells and shit.
Right.
It's not
and when
really
you get to that, Exactly. And when you get to that fundamental premise, this is where we come in terms of our discussion or interest in it, rather than going, well, how did Darwin get debunked? Well, what was the notion? What if this particular aspect was wiggled in this way? That's how they're focusing it or readdressing the issue, because it's just an issue now. For us, we go, okay, Darwin was wrong. Where do we go now? Well, to the next ontological primitive, because it's the only alternative. That's it. They focused on it for about 30 seconds, and then it's the, oh, how profound. Now let's focus on how easily we should be brushing Darwin to one side. No, just brush him to one side and move on.
In view of their three-dimensional shapes. So they make the parts of molecular machines. They function as enzymes to catalyze reactions at super fast rates. They help process information. But if you were to build a system like the flagellar motor, you need 30 proteins that fit together in an integrated fashion. But that requires genetic code. Each one of those proteins requires a long stretch of genetic information to build the protein. And
that's what it's all about. That's why you heard QE right at the start. Where do they get the information? That's what this is all about.
So what you're talking about is not just, some bent hammer or something sitting around doing nothing. You're talking about a need for genetic information that is sufficient to overcome these long odds against building the protein in the first place. So it'd be like, to change the metaphor slightly, a gigantic haystack the size of the North American continent, and you're only allowed to search 1/1037th of the continent, maybe a tiny little square of Southern California. If that's the case, are you more likely or less likely to find the needle? To find the needle? And the answer is you're overwhelmingly more likely not to find the needle than to find it, which is to say the mutation selection mechanism lacks the creative power to generate new biological information.
Close to the creative.
Exactly, and that's for one.
Why'd he cut him off right at the crescendo of the point?
You know why.
Of course I know why.
You know why.
Got a rumpus.
He's trying to say it's impossible. Mathematically. He's trying to say the probability is lower. He's not being honest. Yeah? Because it doesn't matter about the probability. It's about the simple fact that the information coding was rewritten. It's preordained. It's not there to be discovered by a chance. It's already been programmed in these things. It's already there. The meaning is waiting to be found, not you trying to create a meaning from putting bits of Lego together. They only go together in certain ways. All the information, which is the bit they're ignoring, they just want the organism and then an excuse for it. But the organism exists because of the information that puts it together, the code that existed before the organism.
Right. Well, what puts the Lego together? Well, that it was designed that way. Whatever you're going to build, well, you can do that because it was designed to do that.
Yeah. Where'd you get the information in the first instance? Well, you need a knower.
The designer.
A knower.
You have to design it that way.
Yeah.
One protein out of 13 proteins necessary to make the waving little tail, which is only one machine. All right.
Yeah. That, in a sense, is...
Yeah, but the protein itself has got all that information inside it, hasn't it?
Before you said anything about the fact that the information required is linguistic. And
did he say, Brian?
Linguistic language is not produced by random processes.
Right.
And this is a hugely important thing.
What you mean
well,
by that.
Why is he onto language? Is he boiling this back down to the language of the DNA or the information contained within the protein, or is he just taking this on to a non sequitur?
No, he's saying the information. He's describing the information in the cell as a language, and he's saying that language doesn't come from random processes.
Right. So it's the former. Okay.
Yeah. And Nathan, remember I said that we were way ahead.
Yeah.
QE would explain that so much simpler and so much better to an audience who are ignorant.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
And language isn't created from inanimate objects. Unless you think inanimate objects, unless you consider inanimate objects as sentient and intelligent.
It's not that, is it? You can't randomly put things together, Right? I can put things randomly together, and it can mean all sorts of things to me because I've just invented it. I've just made it up. But when I send it to QE, unless there's a language already pre-agreed between the two of us to communicate that information, it's just a random bit of nonsense. And this is the point, that all these random bits of nonsense all seem to work to the same code that's pre-written. And this is what they're not recognizing. They just want to excuse probability of mutation, ignoring the fact that that information is prior to everything. It's there, and it has to be understood by the cell.
I see.
To program the cell to understand the information, yeah?
So their apologetics is as follows. They reduce down the chances to an infinitesimally small amount. That's the first part of the apologetic. The second part is to say, well, if it's an infinitesimally small chance that will happen, and we extend the timeline, then it will.
It's even dumber than that.
Yeah.
It's even dumber than that, because if you're going to talk about mutations, I don't even know why we're in this so far. All we got to do is say information and it's over. For the atheists, dumbass bastards, poor dumb bastards. But when you're talking about mutations, well, it's not that simple, because you got the protein coding regions that makes the physical things, right? But then you got the meta information, completely separate part of the DNA, the homeobox, the meta information genes, right? That when you have a mutation, you not only have to mutate that specific part of the protein coding region, but you'd have to mutate the meta information clear on the other side of Las Vegas that tells you who, what, when, where, why, and how. Follow? It's ridiculous.
Agree. With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!